What's up, buttheads? Welcome to our Andor after show. No ifs and/or buts. Today we're talking about episode 10, One Way Out, one of my favorite Star Wars things ever. Can't stop thinking about it. And we're going to talk about it for a while. First, starting with our guest, Alden Diaz from Ahch-To Radio. Hey, Alden, and welcome.
Hello. Fancy meeting you here in the waiting room where you invited me. We, act like we weren't already talking. How's it going?
No, actually, we did a pretty good job. Like when we got into the waiting room, my instinct is always to be like, "What'd you think?" But we just kind of sat quietly, and
that's what this episode commands, for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of quiet contemplation. Yeah.
And real quick, I think this is fitting. Thank you, Elliot Finn, for this super chat for the last time on program.
But
now
for
we're
the
free.
last time.
Last time.
Yep, we put that place behind us now.
Yeah.
Do you think any of the prisoners, like, if they just want to like sit back and relax and recline, do they like, no, I can't.
Can't do it.
Can't do that.
Yeah,
anymore.
I think that would be ruined for me. It's almost like after you've worked retail for a while, when you go to fold things and then you're like, nah, I gotta just throw it. I have to undo. Yeah.
Well, let's dive into Andor as a whole first. I like to ask our guests just what do they think of the series? How have you enjoyed the first 10 episodes?
Well, I mean, I think this has been one of the most interesting and challenging Star Wars experiences I've ever had, because it's one of those things where it's like, it is so phenomenally crafted that I can't help but love every single thing about it, even though it also happens to be the one that is least like the stuff I like. It doesn't have weirdness or quirk or like a twinkle in the eye or anything pulpy. It's like the closest we got was Vetch and maybe the 2 seconds on Niamos with that one nose guy.
What is this Dr. Quadpaw erasure?
Oh, Quadpaw, that's true. But then Quadpaw's like, I couldn't save him. Even Quadpaw's story was
like still pretty.
It's still sad. Like it's not
He's
like
Quadpaw. Damn it, lost another one, banging all 4 hands on a table.
Quadpaw is the Dr. House of the Star Wars universe, and he should have his own spinoff, just called Quadpaw MD. But yeah, I've described it like this: if there's a fence, right, and on one side of the fence is Star Wars, and on the other side of the fence is not Star Wars, Andor runs up to that fence, shakes it, threatens to climb over it, and then always comes back down. Where you're like, ooh, I don't know about that, and then all of a sudden, bam! And with the endings of the arcs have been kind of like 3, 6, and now 10 have really felt like some of the most Star Wars ever.
I do understand some of the people who will say that it doesn't feel like Star Wars to them. It's just not fitting their Star Wars taste. And I'm like, I get that. Because like that's probably my biggest criticism as well, is the lack of pulp. We have a few little sprinkles here or there, but it's very much just a very serious show. But I like that. I like that variety quite a bit.
That's the thing, is that I enjoy the fact that when you look at the Star Wars slate, the fact that we had this and then Tales thrown in there, but then the next thing will be Batch, and then probably the next thing will be Visions Volume 2, and then Ahsoka and Acolyte. I like that there's no trend going on right now with the feels of how things are going to be. It would be, if it was like, oh, we'll get Andor, and then next year we'll get Andor. It's like, that would be less exciting to me than what we have right now.
Yeah. It's fun to be able to bounce around back and forth. Molly, I'll throw it to you to start the discussion on episode 10. But before I do that, I just realized that you were saying beforehand that we should introduce ourselves at the start of every show, especially for our audio listeners. And then I completely forgot to do that. So, hi, I'm Alex Damon from Star Wars Explained.
Well, we had kind of a stressful last hour and a half because we've been trying to do too much today. But yeah,
we're going to a wedding this weekend out of town. We're going to a destination wedding.
Love it.
And so we tried to get the Q&A done. We're doing the stream. We're doing a lot tonight.
And it was a little bit of a week, I'd say, here in the States. So sure. I think everybody's sort of coming down,
especially in Georgia and Florida, where we're at.
Yeah.
A
little on edge.
But Molly, introduce yourself to everyone.
Yeah, I'm Molly Damon, and sometimes I forget that this exists on podcast streams as well. So hello, if you don't know who we are. But you should check out the video because of our drawings.
Yeah, we'll get to those.
Yes.
Basically,
Yes.
Alden, when we start talking about the episode, if we hit your favorite moment or whatever you doodled, you bring it up and we'll all celebrate that moment.
Okay, perfect. I feel like the doodles might all be at the same time.
They might be.
But
They might be.
yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing everyone's interpretation, but we'll see.
Absolutely.
I just drew mine within the span of about a minute, so it's very rudimentary, but I think it gets the point across.
Yeah. Same here.
Well, Molly, what did you think of episode 10?
I mean, I loved it. My heart was pounding like the entire time we were watching this episode. And they've done such a good job leading up to this point to get you to that place mentally where you understand what's going on in all these characters' heads, what's being presented, the idea that this is their best shot at getting out. It has to be now. Like Cassian says that over and over and over. And like the way that they all kind of rally together it's awesome. And Kino, I said this earlier, Alex, I think Andy Serkis has really stolen the show with this arc specifically. I don't think anyone's surprised by that, but it's so cool to see a character like that pop up in Star Wars and just take the show by storm. And I think that's exactly what he did in this episode. And I had all the feels. It was, if you saw our reaction, it was a roller coaster of emotion.
Andy Serkis just crushing it with this turn of like the character in episode 8 that I was like, screw this guy. Like, I love Andy Serkis, but no thank you to him. And then they do an entire episode winning you over. And then this whole episode. But yeah, the transformation from antagonist to like super protagonist is so impressive.
Yeah, it's amazing to see it happen and the amount of time they were able to do it. And just like the Andy Serkis of it all, like we've had some moments like Matt Lanter is in that one episode of Mandalorian of like somebody that we've used, but we could use them again in a different way. And I think that we have, who are like Lord of the Rings fans or Apes fans, like we know this guy's range, but to see him no makeup, no computer generated performance, and just being able to go all in, like now I want this for Lupita Nyong'o. I want to see like what other character could she make? What other character could Tia Sircar make? I think The Last of Us is putting the voice actors in the show as other roles, and I think that cool. It's like, yeah, if you've got amazing talent like this, like use them again. We did, Snoke died. Screw it, use them again. I think it's great.
That's just going to bring this up because I have to. But yeah, this is Andy Serkis in 2 episodes got like 2 iconic Star Wars lines now.
Catchphrases, yeah.
Yeah, catchphrase. We got never more than 12, one way out now. He gets all the best lines in these 3 episodes. It's so good. Yeah. I just want to I want to celebrate him forever. And it's just one of the more normal Star Wars characters. Like
he's just a guy. You don't even know what he's in for. You don't know if he's ever like he might not be in for a violent crime. So who knows if he's ever even shot at anybody with a blaster. You have no idea what his skill sets are or anything. And I think that's what allows you to make whatever Kino, like, okay, if they make the Kino 5-issue comic in a month, I'm going to buy it. But the mystery right now works perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you don't need to know.
I love that Andy Serkis talked about creating his own idea of like a little mini backstory for his character, because that's just how invested he was in this character and how much time and effort he put into kind of a small role, but it shows.
It's wild that he's going to be in a quarter of this season, an 1/8 of the entire show, but I feel like he's going to be top tier. I'm like, I dare you to top this in the past 2 episodes. Please do, Tony Gilroy, or in season 2.
Yeah. It's like, it's one of those things you're playing the trailer game because we all pay attention. Like there's some space pew pew we've yet to get to, but the emotions of this, it's like these characters And Diego said this up top, right? I think he was trying to avoid maybe some of the backlash that Book of Boba Fett got for being partially not about him for certain chapters. And I remember Diego giving an interview beforehand, like, yeah, it's called Andor, but like, really, there's so many people. And at the time I was like, is that modesty? Is that just PR? But really, we got a complete Kino story here. We're getting a complete Mothma story. We're getting a complete Luthen story. Every time we check in with Bix and Marva and Brasso, things are getting worse. So it really is about 6 or 7 stories at the same time. I mean, Deidre and Cyril too.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about the idea? Because this is something that I've been kind of going back and forth on in my head, that Cassian is really, really passive in this story. I think he's becoming more and more active, but it does feel like, you know, he just kind of lets things happen to him, which makes me kind of latch on to characters like Nimic and Kino. And I think we're getting to this point. I think that is kind of the point of the season, is him going from just being like, well, this is just my life and the Empire and blah, blah, blah. But we saw in this episode how he can help inspire leadership. And I think that we will see him continue to take a more and more active role, culminating in, like, you know, his choice to go to Scarif. But
yeah,
how do you feel about that he's been a little bit passive in these first arcs?
Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to go first, Molly, or if you look like you're pondering.
Yeah, I mean, I just am enjoying how, you know, when we first see Andor, it's on Ferrix, and it's like he just assumes his friends and the people he knows on Ferrix will cover for him. And, you know, he's slowly starting to actually learn his lesson and see the repercussions of the decisions that he's making. So it's nice to see that. And I listened to the round table interviews that you guys did. And I remember the costume designer pointing out him literally shedding layers of clothing, like you first see him on Ferrix, like with all the layers of the jackets and stuff like that. And he's like shedding these layers both visually and, you know, in his character arc. And I was like, I love that stuff. I love it so much.
That's amazing. Yeah, when he said that, it made so much sense, because that long Cassian sort of parka that's in the Black Series, full beard. They even make that point in the show, like, he was clean shaven. He was clean shaven when he came back. That whole idea of knowing that the end point is the mustachioed, classic 70s hair jacket Cassian that we see in Rogue One. It's like this idea that he's on his own, even though it's not as like whimsical or fantasy as like Luke or Rey or Ezra's journeys. It is still Star Wars journey. Like arcs 1 and 2, or episodes 1 and 2 are so different. But then 3 is, oh, I meet the old mentor. I leave home. I go off into this journey. It's almost like the whole season is saying, welcome to Star Wars, Cassian Andor. Everyone else is already in Star Wars, Mothma, Luthen, everybody. But he has been the one that's like, you know, Alex, you brought up like active and passive protagonists and heroes. It's kind of like Deckard and Blade Runner, right? Where things happen to Deckard more so than with like Han Solo or Indiana Jones. Deckard's kind of like along for it. But in this prison, all the natural leadership stuff that Luthen saw in him started to happen just organically. Like he's already learning the sign language. He's learning the signals. He's been working on the bathroom longer than he had a plan with Kino. So he was going to do something no matter what. And I think he's coming out of this now with Melshi as sort of like the Robin to his Batman. And they're going to be Star Wars heroes now.
I think there's something interesting with Cassian. We see that he doesn't let his ego get in the way. He doesn't really, even for little things, like when he swapped places with Taga in episode 9, and he was like, it was Taga's idea, and gave him the credit, which Taga was like scared of at first. But I think he recognizes when that kind of thing, when there's no room for ego, and when it's like, no, it needs to be Kino in this moment. They won't listen to me. Me coming over the intercom and be like, hi, it's Keith Gergo. They'll be like, who?
Oh, that's right. He's Keith. Yeah.
He can finally retire that stupid fake name.
Would you rather be a Clem or a Keith, Molly? Go.
Oh, Clem for
Clem,
sure.
easy. What do you think? Like, they're in the water and he's like, Melshi, my name is Cassian. And he's like, what? Nothing. We'll talk later.
Not
But
now.
I think that Cassian lets his ego sit to the side, where we have, I know you want to talk about Luthen's speech at the end at some point, but he talks about the ego that led him down this road. And I don't really have a point to say about that, just that I kind of thought about it right now, that Cassian doesn't mind and recognizes when someone else should take the lead, whereas Luthen might let his ego drive him a little bit more.
I like this. I don't know why this popped in my head randomly, but when we hear him say over and over, like, I'm just a tourist, when he's trying to like not get arrested, that he's just a tourist in a lot of his own life and like in other people's lives. He's just acting like a tourist. He's not making any solid connections with anyone. But now we're seeing him kind of start to get into that a little bit more.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that that's part of sort of the overall journey of a lot of these characters. Like, what him and Kino are able to connect on is the abandoning sort of that tourist energy, that mentality. Like, you look at after Aldhani, when he's talking to Marva, he's like, it was just a robbery. It was just a robbery. It was nothing else. Like, he's trying to deny the fact that it was a really triumphant act of rebellion. Then it's the tourist stuff. And then he's faced with Kino, a guy who has been so beaten down by the system that he's just counting shifts. And Cassian reminds Kino, you're more than just that. You are a person. And that's why you have to be the one that give the speech. Like, these two guys figure out we can still affect the world around us. We don't have to be a participant. And that's in the Mothma storyline too, of, am I just going to let my husband and my friend and my friend's friend and my daughter, like, when is my life my life? And I think that's sort of what's happening across all the stories.
I'm going to bring up something that people are going to be sick of me talking about, because I mentioned it in the review today. It's in tomorrow's video. I did a short on it, and I want to bring it up now, but you kind of brought it up with now I'm brain farting, but you said something. Oh, him insisting that the Aldhani stuff was just a robbery and nothing more. But there was this one moment where Cassian, like, it shows him before the heist and he is wide awake, or not the heist. It shows him before the prison break. And then you compare that to the start of episode 6, where Nimic is like, I couldn't sleep, and I really wish that my conviction would let me. And you're over there believing in nothing, and you're sleeping like a stone. And I think it was really purposeful for them to show Cassian just like lying there, eyes wide open, because I do think that he is starting to have more conviction. And I think that he needed, like, if Aldhani didn't happen, I don't know what would have happened for Cassian, but I think that he proved to himself and the galaxy that the Empire can bleed. And if he hadn't gone to Aldhani, now he might not believe that they can escape this prison. But he's like, whatever, I raided a garrison. I stole millions of credits. Like, we can do this. And now he's actually starting to believe more.
Yeah, he's at that point now. Oh, you're good. He's at that point now where he's like realizing that apathy is not a choice, and is not a choice for him anymore. And you need him to have that breakthrough before he can pass that down to Jin. When he meets Jin, he's meeting somebody that's in a spot that he was in. And so it's now changed the entire dynamic of, like, Rogue One has always been the Star Wars movie that I've struggled with the most. Somewhat controversially, if you ask some of my friends. I get booed a lot for that. But this has done for that what Kenobi did for the prequels and for New Hope for me, where suddenly I'm finding all this new depth. And I love this idea that Cassian, like, when he gunned down Skeen, he did it and he was almost afraid of what he'd done. But in that moment, when he killed Skeen, that was his dark side cave. Like, you can still have the Star Wars moments without the magic. Like, he killed his worst self. That's what you could be. And now that he did that, he's, ever since that moment, he's been on this journey toward being Captain Cassian Andor. And I think that it will be in the same way that Aldhani happened. Like, now people are going to talk about Narkina 5. And like in the Star Wars history, all of these moments of like pre-Battle of Atollon moments that are notable are all coming back to this guy. And it just makes him so important.
And you brought up Rogue One. It makes me think of like when he was told to just follow orders and go take out Jin's dad. And like you see him struggle with that, you know, mostly because he knows Jin now and like he sees her, but you see him struggle with that decision and ultimately he doesn't do it. And like knowing all of his story leading up to that moment is so important now.
Especially with his dad having been murdered by a power that was trying to exercise their will. He knows the rebellion's right, and he's willing to do things that are crossing the lines, as Rogue One shows you right at the opening. But it's someone's father, and it's so connected to where you are. And at that point, even though Jin needs to learn lessons, Jin is also right about a lot of the stuff that she's saying about his humanity, and the two of them learn from each other. But he has to get to this point now too, and all the climb stuff that happened in the eye comes back here as well. That it has to be vertical every time.
That's such a great point about Galen and this idea that that he could be thinking back to, you know, his own father and like, am I about to really orphan this girl?
He also, I could see it being like so far he's just known as Galen as being part of the problem of like, this guy created the Death Star, basically. He designed the Death Star, but then when he sees them, they're basically just slaves to the Empire. Like,
they're wearing white jumpsuits.
Maybe he just like started having flashbacks and was like, I can't kill this guy. He just like, he's doing this but against his own will, probably.
He's been in that same situation.
That's him. That's Kino. I mean, even we don't know the stories that he was told by Marva and Clem, but they were early, you know, we know from StarWars.com, like pre-Clone Wars, but already dissenting, already questioning. And even though there's that symbol that the Separatists already might have been brewing, if not official, it's like he's come up in a critical thinking type house. And now that he's seen Marva already choose rebellion, Marva is ready for Star Wars 100% to her detriment. You know, we don't see her, but we get the idea that her injury and illness is getting worse. And he's carrying all of that with him now. I think that the refusal to kill Galen is so much more beautiful now, especially with what Chirrut says about him. Like, he had this prison breakout arc, and now Chirrut says you carry a prison with you.
Yeah. I love that Marva has started this journey because of his actions. Like the Aldani job has inspired her to be like this, and like he knows that. She told him that to his face, and so that just adds a whole other layer of emotions for Cassian to be dealing with. And ultimately, you know, it's probably going to lead to him back on Ferrix to help start a revolution there, or at least I hope so. But yeah.
Something I was surprised that they didn't follow up on. I'm sure they will in the next 2 episodes, but we got those slight Clone Wars, not Clone Wars, like Clone Trooper flashbacks. And I get the sense that was kind of Cassian's first attempt at a rebellion, and that's probably why he got thrown in prison the first time. So I was kind of expecting that we would get more of those flashbacks to see what his life was like in prison the first time around. But that I think maybe what crushed his hopes and dreams early on, that he had to like fight back out of it, is because the Empire killed his father, and then he tried to fight against that, and they threw him in jail.
Just so by them showing us that and you thinking that, I think they got the point across of like, yeah, this is where it kind of started.
Yeah.
It'll always loop back around.
And I like the way that this show doesn't, you know, directly tell you everything. It lets you kind of make those assumptions. We were talking about this watching it earlier today, the Davos Golden scene where he's like, I just want my 14-year-old son to meet your 13-year-old daughter. He doesn't say I want them to get married. He just says that. He even says like, oh, that I'm not gonna make them marry each other, but like,
Yeah,
the,
it is
they say it without saying it.
the undertones, the threat of it. It's very, and like we talked about, Cassian's got this cycle of trauma that keeps going with parents, with prisons and everything. Mothma's cycle of trauma is in a lot of ways Chandrilan tradition and what it's done to her life. And now she's faced with this choice of to do the right thing with the options that Tay's presented. You know, he does kind of say, I think at episode 9, I could keep looking, but she's having this meeting with Davo. Are you now going to perpetuate a cycle that led you to be unhappy? A cycle that would have made Vel arranged to a man. She's not even attracted to men. You know, this queer character stuck in this society that you are so close with. Now you're going to throw your daughter, bratty as she may be, because her dad has his, you know, he's got his claws in her. Does she deserve that? Like, you're going to take her choices away for 400,000 credits? And that's what it comes down to.
I mean, the whole point of the rebellion is to fight for the next generation. And so you're going to sacrifice literally your next generation for everyone else's. And it's like, and is that right?
Yeah.
I love that conundrum.
I love the imagery of that shot of in Mon Mothma's apartment of the two of them and then her in the middle, because it's like the angel and the devil, right? And like there's a chandelier looming over all of them that kind of looks like this funnel, and like she's directly underneath it, and just it looks so good. The imagery of the show, I will never shut up about it. It's so good.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, the direction is excellent.
Yeah, and the fact that that's a prison, the fact that, you know, when Vel had visited in the previous episode, but then even here with Davo being a visiting Chandrilan, the idea that she doesn't even have a home, she lives in the embassy. Like, she lives in sort of this space between constantly being at work and also being a guest on Coruscant, but never actually a resident. Like, it knowing that she'll end up on the run by the time of Rebels tracks so well when you consider the claustrophobia of her life. And then you read things like Princess and the Scoundrel. No spoilers for that for anyone that hasn't read it, but one of the first people that finds out that these two are getting married is Mon, and she has that moment of maternal sort of happiness for Leia. And now I'm waiting to see, like, is that going to be more tragic, or like, you know, upon a reread, like, what is she going to make this choice? It's hard because Mon has to go from the Revenge of the Sith deleted scenes with Padme, like, we can fix everything with legislation, to now it's like, my hands have to get a little dirty. But then by Return of the Jedi, she's there saying, yeah, blow that thing up. Like, she has to become not a Luthen or a Saw, but she does have to get down into the war.
Yeah.
Alden, what do you see as the key difference? We can talk about Luthen because I know you're dying to. What do you see as the key difference between Luthen and Mon as like rebel leaders?
The difference between Luthen and Mon to me, and you can ask our mutual friend Ken Knapsack how many texts I sent him today about this idea. I think that it is that Mon Mothma, I think at the end of the day, and we'll talk about it when we get to the speech, there's that idea of the sunrise. I do think that when Mon Mothma visualizes the end, because you have to think that this can be toppled to be in it, right? One thing that all rebels agree on, whether you're Saw Gerrera or whether you're Mon Mothma or whether you're somebody, you know, even as small as Ezra when we first meet him, just a kid, everybody believes a better day can come. The difference between Luthen and Mon is that Luthen doesn't think that he will be a part of it, can be a part of it, and possibly even deserves to be a part of it. It makes me think of, either of you see Serenity, the Firefly follow-up? Everybody, if you haven't seen Firefly or Serenity, there's something fun to watch. In Serenity, Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, the operative, the villain, says to Malcolm, like, I have no illusions about what I do. What I do is evil. He's like, but it must be done to create a better world. I have no place in that better world. And then you don't get a resolution of that in the film. But I think Luthen is that type of character. Luthen does not even, I think, perceive that when there's a Yavin 4, like, Dodonna and Bail and Mothma. He doesn't see himself at that table. And I think that's why he is encouraging even Saw, the most far gone and the hardest line of all of them. He's even telling Saw, can you at least meet this one guy? Can you make one connection? Can you please? Because I think Luthen has, I'm not fan theorying, like he's dying. He has, some sort of sickness. I don't think it's that, but I do think that he's gearing up for a death wish. Like when Luthen goes out, and he will, that's not a scoop or anything. That's just like, come on, he's gotta.
He said it himself. Like, he's not going to live to see that sunrise. And I was like, we're
going to see someone else lose the will to live in this show.
I think that he's going to do something drastic. Like, what if Luthen pulls a gun on Palpatine or something? Like, he might, something that big, or Tarkin or something. Like, he needs this network to exist because he's not a capital R Rebel Alliance member. Yeah. And I think that's the difference. Because he says to Lonnie, I guess we're just talking about the speech now. When he says to Lonnie, I'll need all the heroes I can get. He's talking about the people that he has brought into this inner circle, into this network. He didn't want Tay, Kolma involved. Mothma did it anyway. Who is he choosing? Why is he choosing them? Like, we know that there's a recontextualization now happening where we knew that Mothma in canon had done all this stuff since the delegation to 2000. Like, it's all been this thing that's been building for years. So that, of course, Mothma would be one of Luthen's chosen heroes, but he needs those heroes to be there because he's going out. It's like Moses, like, I'm not going to be there on the other side.
I made the exact same comparison to Moses and Kino today, but it's the same thing.
Same thing. I won't actually get to see it, or, that's in a lot of myth. I mean, everybody that has to, whether they know it or not, the person that has to die, that way everybody else can get forward. It's like Boromir, like, you don't get
Caesar
to actually
in Planet of the Apes, another Andy Serkis character.
And I think that he knows that. It's like Star Wars gets criticized a lot now for being too much about Star Wars. Like, it used to, George was inspired by older things. Now Star Wars is inspired by Star Wars. And sometimes people call that fan service. They get mad about it, and that's fine. That's their right. But when it plays with it, I love it. Kylo Ren is somebody that's dealing with the shadow of Star Wars. Grogu is Star Wars. Somebody like Din Djarin is new to Star Wars. He's finding out what Star Wars is.
Is this
Luthen? Jedi? Does this rock look Jedi to you? How does it work? Is this a bench? Luthen is one of those ideas, and his is, I don't deserve to be a part of Star Wars. And I think that is so fascinating. And that's why I think he's different. Because I thought going into the show, it would be Mothma's on this end, Saw's on this end, and he's in the middle. He's not. He doesn't even think he's part of that. He just needs those pieces to find a way. Because this guy's gonna, like, I don't know. I don't think that shop of antiquities is gonna last long. He might just blow it up one day. Who knows?
I wanted to bring this comment up from Maddie Gunner because this is something Alex and I talked about earlier when we were watching the episode again. Do you think Luthen was trying to get Saw caught with Krieger? Do you think Luthen knew that that pilot was going to get found and killed and staged and all that stuff? Because we were like, ooh, he could be a lot more sinister than we actually think he is.
I threw that idea out. I don't think it's true. I feel like Lonnie is hit. By the way, Lonnie, what a Star Wars name! But
isn't it like it's Lonnie. Like Lonnie Jung too? Like, it just makes. What is that?
I think Lonnie was his source, and I don't think he knew about Krieger. I think we were seeing him find out in real time. Krieger's people are going to die, and then he went, "Oh well." He's like, "They're a bunch of pawns, and Young, you are my rook or bishop, or like, you're too important to sacrifice. I can throw away pawns." So I do think that's what that was meant to sell. But we did kind of have that idea of like, wait a minute. Is there a reason he was like, no, seriously, Krieger needs air support? And he's like,
Alex, do you play chess? I love that you were like expanding on the chess metaphor there. I was like, oh yeah, he is. Yeah, I guess Luthen has like his king and his queen. Like Saw.
I know how to play chess.
Yeah. After we watched, was it Queen's Gambit? We tried to play chess one time after that, and I was like, no.
Molly threw the board across the room.
Not for me. unless it's wizard's chess and I can yell what I want to happen. But yeah, it's an interesting thought. But I do agree, Alex. I think he's finding it out in real time. But he's like, it's so interesting because there's the tactical level of Lonnie's worth more to me than 50 Anto Krieger soldiers. But then he has to drive the knife in of like, well, I'm doing this so your daughter can have her father, Lonnie. It's also about that. Like, that's how, because I didn't know at first. I was like, is Lonnie about to get shot on this bridge? Yeah. Like, is this about to go down? But he doesn't need that because he's 10 steps ahead. He's always playing chess. If he had killed him, then that's a dead ISB officer. Then that's a whole thing. That draws more heat. But this idea of, I know you're pleading to me as a family man, then I'll keep you in the game using the fact that you're a family man. And I thought that was so interesting and compelling. And the idea of like Nikki Kumar from Imperial Senate, who also does our Rebels rewatch with me and is on the roundtables. He was bringing up the idea of the imitation game and like Alan Turing and how they broke Enigma in World War II. And it's like, you broke the Nazi code of Enigma and with your machine, but that doesn't mean you can act on every single one, because then they'll know you broke it.
Right.
And so it's like, sometimes it's like we have to choose what are going to be the wins and what are going to be the losses. And Krieger, whatever he's got, I don't know. We don't even know who he is. He could be another incredible guest star. Who knows what this guy's going to be about? Him and 50 people are about to just walk into a trap. And Luthen's like, it's business.
I'm imagining that they did get some like great guest star actor, but it's just like them dead on a table. Like, we got Krieger.
Well,
and then they bring Benedict Cumberbatch out of the room.
Oh no. Ever since we heard Saw talking about Krieger and Saw called him like a big stupid oaf, I've been dying to know what he looks like. Or big stupid ox, yeah, sorry. And
I pictured
I hope we see him.
I pictured Mark Addy, who's King Robert Baratheon, or Fred Flintstone. I think that's somebody like him, just like this big, like, let's do the rebellion before I piss myself. Like, just like some, just some awful big dude.
I'm picturing him as John Hamm in the last season of Parks and Recreation, where he's in it for like just a little bit, and he's like so dumb.
Yes, the moron.
I did real quick want to share that I asked Ken Knapsack how many texts did Alden send you today, and he said too many.
Too many.
It's always too many, because he asks me a point, and then he'll bring it up, and then Ken texts more like a 20-year-old, and I text more like a novelist. I text the way I tweet. I talk the way I tweet. So yeah.
I've been kind of comparing, or today we kind of talked about the idea of Luthen being the more realistic kind of, and Mon Mothma being the idealistic. Like, I really wish the world could be this way. And then that led us down to kind of like a Batman Harvey Dent situation, where like, are these kinds of people necessary? Someone that does the terrible stuff so that Mon Mothma gets to be the untarnished one that doesn't break the rules, so to speak, and gets to keep her hands clean because Luthen is over here doing all these terrible things. But that reminded me a lot of
tarnished.
Harvey Dent, of like when he became Two-Face and he dies in the Dark Knight, and Batman's like, if everyone finds out that he did this, that he broke so bad, then they'll lose hope. So like, let Batman be the bad guy.
Let Batman take care of it.
Let Batman do.
Let Batman do. Batman together strong. Yeah, the entire idea of Luthen as Batman has fascinated me since day one, especially the Nolan Batman in particular. When Alfred, beautifully played by Michael Caine, does the whole like, you see only one ending to your story. I really think that, and Bruce,
is Michael Caine here? That was very good.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Caine in the stream. Could you imagine? Just Michael Caine's like, I love Andor. The whole idea of that not being true for Bruce. Bruce was like surprised, at the end of Rises. I don't think it was going to be a surprise with Luthen. He is that, where he has the public Bruce Wayne. Like Bruce Wayne doesn't even drink. You see him in The Dark Knight, he throws his wine over the ledge. Like the only person that ever really sees the real Bruce is Alfred. It depends on the iteration. There are many, obviously. The character's been around for 80 years, I think. But the idea of the only person who sees the real Luthen is probably Clea. And even she's pretty hardcore. She's the one that's like, I'll go. No, I'll go. You stay. I'll go. She's the one that goes and tells Vel he needs to die. Clea might be, I don't know, maybe not operating outside of Luthen's own interest, but I could see maybe a clash happening there where they might not be as close as maybe Luthen thinks they are. Who knows?
Yeah, she seems kind of desperate to like it, whatever it takes, even more so than Luthen. And I'm curious to see if we see more about her. I don't think we have time to, and there's 2 more episodes left, but what her motivations are exactly.
I'm still feeling like, I feel like there's almost not enough time to wrap up what I want them to wrap up this season, which means they'll probably just take it all into season 2, and that's fine. But then I just am having that feeling again of being like, look, Tony, Diego, I know you don't want to be doing this show for 10 years, but could you though? Could you? It's
especially
so good.
Especially because we know that 2 is going to be formatted so differently.
I know
that 2 is going to be like jumping years. So
talking about like him almost assassinating Galen and stuff, I'm like, I think we need to see Cassian firmly within the Rebel Alliance doing terrible things, where like he's done some bad things in this series so far, but I wouldn't say it was in service of the rebellion so much. So
Cassian
like I want to see that stuff.
He's gonna pull out a sniper rifle and he's gonna shoot and kill Orn Free Taa. And we're going to be like, he got shot and killed again. Someone else assassinated Orn Free Taa. I can't get to break.
I so badly. Oh, I had this thought too. We were talking about Krieger. I kind of think we might get to see Krieger's crew. They've already mentioned the Ring of Kafrene. I think Tivik might be part of Krieger's people. So, like, I really, really want to see them have a whole 3 episodes together just to make that moment even worse. I think I said maybe a year ago that I'm like, wouldn't it be so tragic if we see Tivik get injured and why his arm is hurt, and maybe it's even Cassian's fault, and then like it leads to him having to shoot Tivik in Rogue One. Like, I just really want Tivik in this series.
I think it makes as much sense as Melshi. I mean, the idea of the 3 of them being sort of a little bit of a team for a little while, maybe in one of the season 2 arcs, would be fascinating. But yeah, I don't. It's so hard to see. The whole idea of wrapping it in 2 as a 2-parter is just wild to me. And other shows have done it, and I even had that with Mando season 2, where I was like, how can they pay off this Jedi thing with this capture the baby and all this stuff? And then they did that. So it is possible. But yeah, it's going to be super interesting to see how it plays out. Especially, I think Stellan Skarsgård has mentioned something about season 2, so I think he's safe. But it's also that element of, if your name isn't Cassian, Mothma, Saw, or Melshi, you're fair game for what's about to go down.
To be fair, though, like I felt like I was ducking and dodging for Melshi. I was like, "Look out, dude!" I kind of forgot that.
Then you said
he's not really in danger.
Then you said in our reaction, "Don't worry, Melshi, you've got plot armor. Go get him."
It's like, I know he does, but I was still worried for him, and seeing him almost get shot like 3 times was upsetting.
Yeah, and that stuff was all just like it's. I don't know enough about fight choreography to really comment on it as well as I would like to, but Toby Haynes can direct some effing action. Like the whole hanging on the side of the broken elevator, kick the foot out, catch, and then kill the other guy. That was John Wicky. That was really cool.
Yeah,
man. Like I don't know that much about direction itself, but I feel like Toby Haynes just knocked everything he wanted to accomplish out of the park. It's like, I can't tell you what in the directing made me love it all, but I'm like, I know you did a good job because I loved it all.
Speaking
Like
of
that so good.
Speaking of John Wick, we had the idea of Kino just going back in and going John Wick on everyone else that was left in there.
Hey,
so
let's
dark.
Let's get into Kino, because I've been dying to show off my drawing. So I'll start here.
Real
you
quick,
got a
though,
Kino drawing. Okay.
I drew Kino.
I did want to bring this up real quick from Jared the Dark Jedi.
What's your bad opinion about Fig Newtons?
My
Not a
bad
question.
opinion.
Alden
Go ahead, Molly.
Not a question. Alden just had bad opinions on Fig Newtons. I have to know.
My bad opinion is that they're great. He just thinks that's a bad opinion.
Oh, they are
Fig
great.
Newtons are good.
They are great. Oh, look at
They're
the
great
Jared.
snack.
You got shut out. You got shut out.
Jared.
All three people here. Last night, me and Jerry and Jared. So me, Michael McCoy from All Remaining Systems. We're all in a group chat, a nefarious chat of scoundrels. And last night I said something about Fig Newtons, and we got into like a civil war about it. It was like the candy corn civil war all over again. But no,
Candy
Fig
corn is garbage. I'll throw that out there.
Agreed. Candy corn sucks.
Okay, great.
Fig
We're all
Newtons
on
are
the
great.
same side.
Oh yeah,
Fig Newtons are like my go-to. Like anytime I'm sick, like chicken noodle soup, is my jam. But like I'll go for just a pack of Fig Newtons too.
That's because they have grandma energy. Like they're taking care of you, and they tried to use that against me. Like it's an old man snack. It's an old lady snack. I don't care. I love old ladies. Look at Marva. I love them. Like
thinking about it now, like the reason I started eating Fig Newtons more often was like anytime I was sick and had to take medication and I didn't want to take it on an empty stomach, so I would have it like with Fig Newtons. That's a very old person thing to do, and I'm okay with that.
Old people, Fig Newtons, coffee Rios. Yeah, no, absolutely. Nilla wafers, also great.
Welcome to Snacks Explained, where
honestly,
we could do this forever.
I'm gonna do a cereal slurp, like cereal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that slurp. But okay, good segue back into Andor, because I'm gonna share my picture, my doodle of my favorite scene from this episode, and this is exactly how the scene happened at the end when Kino got out of the prison and all the prisoners helped him get to shore. He was like, "I can't swim," and they were like, "No problem. Here we go." I'm going the wrong way. There we go. We'll get you to freedom.
Look,
that's how it happened.
Look, in that conversation with Ken Knapsack of Force Center and Casterly Talk, plug, Ken firmly was like, "Oh, all those thoughts of," he was like, "all those thoughts of survival are beautiful, but he's dead," and I resent that. I don't know. It's the Inception spinning top, and
right.
What we were talking about, Nikki beautifully shared. I won't read the entire thing, but he if you go to his Twitter, he put Kino's quote, "You need to help each other. You see someone who's confused, someone who's lost, you get them moving and you keep them moving until we put this place behind us. You can see land. It's close enough. I don't know what it would be like to maybe two guys arms over the shoulder. I don't know, but there's got to be a way, or keep going. We know ships come and go. Maybe they could have stolen something. If we get to season 2 and Kino Loy shows up as a surprise, that will be like Gandalf the White level. It cannot be. I will be so floored. So I hope.
Especially if he says like, "Kino, yes, that was my name.
That was my name.
That was my prison name." Yeah.
Yeah, everyone goes in with a fake name.
No one.
He's like, "Oh, Keith, it's you." No, Cassian. It's like, "Oh, Kino's not my name either."
Yeah.
He's like, "My name's Lonnie." It's a common name.
Yeah.
I think that that just on a note about that, by the way, I think this show, we joke about Lonnie. This show has had some of the best Star Wars names. This year has had some of the best Star Wars names. High Republic has great ones. Shadow of the Sith has great ones. Keep it up. Whoever's Star Warsing it up on those names. Major Partagaz, incravo names.
Crushing it.
Tim
with two M's.
Tim with two M's. Yeah.
Tim with two M's. That's what made it a space name. Davos Skulden, who is played by the brother of Stannis Baratheon from Game of Thrones. So they both play jerks. Yeah, good stuff on the names.
Wasn't one of the prisoners' names Ham?
I
Like
think there's
HAM?
yeah,
Was that?
Ham,
Yeah, I think so.
Olaf, and there's a third one that did get a name. I can't
Zol.
remember who it was. Zol. Yeah, I think you're right.
I think they
They
do
all
have
had fun
prison
names.
names. Like those aren't their real names, but they're great names.
Yeah, I agree.
Unfortunately, I do think that I don't think we're ever going to know for sure, but I think that Kino is done. I don't think he's going to be in season 2. I will celebrate if he is. I don't care if they somehow Kino survives it. Like I will clap, but
we will get back together and have a Kino returns party. Hold me to it.
I just think that the symbolism is too good. Like we talked about, the sunrise I'll never see. It matches Luthen. It matches Cassian. Like I love the idea of Cassian being on that beach on Scarif and thinking back to Kino. Like
Kino
I think
and
that
Nimic
it means too much. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially because his line about like, do you think they're listening? Come on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. You mentioned Nimic. Does anyone know? Can anyone Star Wars explain where the manifesto's current location is? Is it in the box above the shower?
That'd be my guess.
That's where I assumed it was, but we were hoping that he would find a way to like bring it into the prison with him.
Into prison, that's what I thought too. Like, which is such a historical thing too. Like people reading in prison and like the, like Mandela in prison and like all of those things. So it's not impossible, but it wasn't addressed, and so I wonder.
They definitely showed him hiding it. Like they didn't need to do that. They didn't have to have that scene of him in the shower. Like and
well, some would say they did need to have the scene.
We needed that.
Yeah, that was the distraction to keep you from thinking about this stuff. I'm galaxy braining this. His shirt was off, so you'd be like, yeah, Diego. But really, they were trying to show him hiding his valuables. So I do think that there's hope that he can go back to Niamos. We can hear that song again, and he will get all his stuff back.
It's the same song every time we cut to the planet.
I love that song. But I don't really think he needs the manifesto. Like, I feel like he has gotten to that point where he has accepted it, and maybe the gift of the manifesto pushed him a little further along that road. I would love for him to go back and get it and read it. I think that would be a cool, even maybe after Ferrix, maybe he goes back home then there, like the last scene is him like going back into that room and getting the manifesto. Or maybe, I think that is possible, but
maybe a cleaning, someone on the janitorial staff finds it and they go on to be an integral part of the rebellion.
Jandodana.
Yes. Oh, interesting.
Jandodana. Rebellions are built on. I should tell someone that. That's a really good idea. Which, like, that line has to be in there, right? Like that. For sure. That kind of has to be. That's fantastic. Yeah. Or Melchi season 2. He's like, I just got back from Niamos. You're right. That hotel was awesome. I found your stuff, by the way. Yeah. No, that would be great. So but good.
I do think there's a reason they showed him hiding it.
Yeah, wasn't just for the blaster or whatever credits he was grabbing to buy her 5 gum or whatever she wanted, or
Pizos.
Her Pizos. Yeah, maybe she has it. Yeah, super interesting stuff. Yeah, but I think that the Kino, to loop it back in with you said, Alex, like, as much as I want the optimism, I do think that for the theme, the problem is that a survival and a death equally serve the themes. This episode is about sacrifice, but it's also about inspiration. And that's the Inception ending, the Sopranos ending, however you want to put it. Like, what actually happened is sort of, how do you feel about the way that it happened? Which is some of the best Star Wars. It's like, it just happened. And you sort of have to carry it. And we could debate it forever, and we'll see Andy Serkis at Celebration, and everyone will ask him, and he'll give a nice little coy answer, and we'll do that for the next 10 years.
Yeah, it's up for interpretation, which is the case with a lot of Star Wars, which is fun.
Yeah.
I have a drawing very similar to Alex. If we want to shed some light on what really happened with Kino. Again, I drew this in about a minute when we first started. So I think Kino found some floaties, and he happened to also find a cape because he is basically Superman. But yeah, no,
So
he
is it
found
like
some floaties. He's fine.
Like a glide situation, almost like he gets a nice big cape jump.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's fine.
I like that.
I think
that's great.
You have to be able to build a flotation device out of those boots. They're heavily insulated.
Yeah.
They have to be made of rubber.
Mm-hmm.
He just went and grabbed a bunch of boots and jumped into the water.
Yeah, this place is it's very much like a Titanic situation where the Empire is too proud to put enough lifeboats on that thing, but there's one somewhere and he found it.
It's got to be one somewhere. And that's the other thing, like joking aside, you just made me think of a point. How much I love that before they get blasters, they're just throwing the tools of the oppressor at them. Like a wrench, a screwdriver, a drill, whatever it is, just chucking up. And it's not like the Ewoks where they were doing great. They were getting gunned down. It was not a good start, but that's the thing. You just needed a couple of guys to get onto the elevator. We took a lot of loss at that beginning stage, and then you get to the room down below that's getting all the water, and then you get to the room over here, and everybody starts to realize that it's possible. And that shot of the Emps behind the door is so satisfying.
Oh,
it's so
good.
It's beautiful. In my first watch, I was going a little dark side and being like, oh, I wish that one dude that was like smiling as he electrocuted everyone in episode 8. I was like, I wanted him to get some comeuppance. But I like that Kino's speech is not about like, let's kill these mother effers. No, it's like, we can get free. Help everyone. It's all about freedom. And yeah, if an Imperial stands in your way, if they're standing in the way of your liberation, shoot them down. He does say to kill in the midst of like climb, whatever he says. He's like, climb, kill, do whatever you need to do to get free.
And Andor and Cassian and Kino have that exchange towards the beginning of the episode where, what does he say? Power doesn't
panic.
Power doesn't panic, which I love that line so much.
Well, it's so Star Wars to be like, we have power because we have the Shocky floor. Like that's what the Empire thinks is power. And we see that like with Dedra and Marva as well. That she's a frail old lady. Like we'll watch her, but there's no reason to bring her in. And I'm like, that's gonna bite you in the ass. Like everyone on that planet loves that woman.
She's the most active rebel that is there right now. And you're right. Like power doesn't panic. That's hubris. That's the idea. Well, nothing could ever go wrong with the Death Star. Yeah. So much so that we'll try it again. Like nothing could ever go wrong with. You see that even in the lightest Star Wars show, Resistance. How the First Order doesn't take anyone seriously on the Colossus. Like that's such a classic. I mean, that's what Endor is. We built this shield bunker. We dealt with these teddy bears, probably killed a few along the way. Actually, we know they killed a few because of Shadow of the Sith. Pride has like a Wookiee pelt thing that he wears. Ewok pelt.
Terrible.
Yeah, the worst. But yeah, the idea of their hubris, sort of like, all we need is this floor, but they don't consider the actual people. Like, I know, controversial as this movie may be, Rise of Skywalker, I've always loved the line from Zori of, they win by making you think you're alone.
Oh yeah, one of the best parts of the movie.
Yeah, and that's the theme statement of that trilogy, and arguably Star Wars. Like that Zori line goes all the way back to Shmi and Anakin of no one ever helps anyone. The biggest problem in the galaxy. And then when you look at this prison and Cassian and Kino put it together, what Kino puts together in that moment is not only am I a person again, but I can tell them that they are too. 5,000 of us versus 12 per level of them. It's going to be gnarly, and they underestimate the people at all times. And, it's timely, not going to drag us down any roads that are going to be stressful in the conversation, but it is timely. I mean, we're coming off of 5th of November the other day, V for Vendetta Day. Like, governments should be afraid of their people.
Mhm.
or the other way. People should not be afraid of the governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
Yeah.
And that idea of being in Star Wars is so powerful, and it makes you realize why they have to do big panicky things like, okay, look what happened. Now throw a bunch of money behind Orson Krennic's project because we need to be able to blow planets out of the sky like that.
That's true. It's like, yeah, the shocky floor didn't work. We got to go bigger. They always want to just go bigger. Oh, the Death Stars blew up. Starkiller Base it is. Like, just
like
to keep...
they don't even listen to Thrawn, who in Rebels is like, all the money should go to the Defender project, which he's probably right about. That if they had done that, the Empire would have been deadlier, quicker, smaller, more precise. But that's not the way that they think, and that's why they lose. And
I just love the way that they view power, and the second it's taken away, they have nothing. Like this was one of my favorite shots of the episode. It's just like
when he
the
realizes
floor is dead, and he's like, I'm standing on the floor and I'm not dead, and it's over.
Yeah.
And they just start rushing. Oh my god.
Oh yeah,
so good.
That's when the clock, we just had a time change. That's when the time changed from F around to find out. Like that's when it became everything you had is now invalid. We are suddenly just as powerful as you. And that's what's so incredible about it. And that's the kind of stuff that Luthen wanted. And I know we've touched on his speech sort of throughout. So if it pleases, might I share my Luthen drawing?
Oh, please.
I created a comic.
Oh.
So the first part is Luthen sharing his dreams with ghosts.
Oh.
As he sleeps. The second part is Luthen's equation. 15 years ago,
divided
by cause equals pain. Then this next part here is I burned my life and decency and life. And then this is the sunrise that he does not get to see.
No, Luthen.
There's no Luthen, just some other people.
Now, are other people anyone specific, or is it just humanity in general?
Yeah, the little male stick figure is Antok Merrick, who I'm waiting for.
Perfect. Yeah.
And then the woman over here is, let's say, who's a rebel that I like that we haven't seen yet. Who's Leia's incredible Alderaanian pilot, Yvonne?
Yeah.
We need Yvonne Verlaine in live action. So yeah, that's who that is. I bring up the Luthen comic now because his speech and everything he's been saying, this is what he wants. This is why Aldhani, he doesn't want credit for Aldhani. He even tells Lonnie,
he won't tell anyone.
Yeah, he tells Lonnie, like, we were invited, but we didn't go. And also the I think about you constantly. Like that whole thing, so unsettling. But what he wanted was acts like this. Like when he hears about the prison, he's going to be so happy because he wants to push the Empire to the point of getting sloppy. He thinks that if you poke the bear enough, eventually the bear will get angry enough to open itself up, and then you can kill it, which is kind of a true strategy. If only he had known about things like Galen and stuff like that. But that's the tragedy of Star Wars in a lot of ways, is that people can't know what they don't know. Like Luthen has no idea that at the same time that he's there with Lonnie, Ezra and Zeb are looking for fruit, on a different planet. Like he has no idea that there are these cells that are doing good, which is just a hilarious thought.
I'd love to do one of those like cuts back and forth to like one way out. And Ezra's like, I gotta find a Jogan fruit. That's happening at the same time.
Yeah, it's just like a chopper. It's fantastic. I love that Star Wars is all those things at once. It brings me so much joy.
I totally agree. Do we have anything else that we want to talk about? Or Alden, have we not touched on anything that you want to before we let you go?
I don't think so. I feel like we had everything. I mean, again, just that speech and what it means and how like Shakespearean it is, and just the acknowledgement of that it's been a 15-year thing, I think is really interesting. The idea that it directly, whatever emotional breakthrough or breakdown Luthen had directly correlates with the rise of this empire. Like, I am fascinated by the idea of more storytelling with this character right there at that time. Like, why him? What was his Batman moment of like, it has to be me? Did he maybe, because you get the idea that this fake Luthen now was the real one at a time. He has a shop that people respect and go to. There's so much fun headcanon. Like, was Luthen somebody that voted in support of Chancellor Palpatine? Like, was Luthen a lobbyist that gave a lot of money to Masameda or like any of these people? Like, why do you feel such a responsibility to it that you developed this equation that means that you're damned for what you do? And I just thought it was such an interesting thing to see a Star Wars character start a speech by saying calm, love, kinship, I forget the fourth one, friendship, whatever it is. He's basically saying the things that Star Wars is about, I don't get them. Like, I don't get to have those. And that's a level of clarity that we haven't seen. And that's why I think him and Saw can talk and laugh with each other. It's because Saw says, I'm the only one with clarity of purpose. I think, if you really press Saw, he'd probably say, yeah, and Luthen too. Like, those are two guys that really understand each other.
I think they're doing such a good job with Luthen of treating him as a dark and tragic figure. I mean, like, everything he said was very much like, I use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I am lost. I've burned my soul. Like, he admits that he is not a good person. And I'm glad that they aren't like lifting Luthen up as like, we should all be more like Luthen. I think they're asking those questions of like, these people are maybe necessary in history, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Not necessary evil, but like necessary darkness. That's something that I don't ever want to see in like Force related stories, because I don't think that's not what Balance of the Force is. The Force is in balance when it's light, and that was, not to litigate a movie that was never made, but that was sort of my issue with the Duel of the Fates script, is that it gets too much into no, you need both. And it's like, when did Star Wars ever say that? You don't need both. But for the non-Force users, for these people, it's like, maybe you kind of do need somebody that is willing to push people to these places and to choose heroes. It takes somebody that sees themselves as a monster to pick heroes like Mothma, who's already been doing work. Mothma, since the prequels, has been doing work, and she has been a rebel in her own way. And she says to Tay that the Mothma is a lie. I love the idea that that's why Luthen said, that's a woman that I need in my circle. She's somebody that after I'm gone can lead us into a better time. And so I'm just fascinated by that. And I cannot believe that we are as close to the end of this as we are.
It's interesting to see a show like this, a story like this in Star Wars, because I'm very used to being like, look, in the real world, Darth Vader doesn't get to go to heaven. But in Star Wars, like in the morality tale of just like, hey, you can be better today than you were yesterday. Yes, I accept that. But it's interesting to see Star Wars be kind of real and be like, yeah, it's nice to think that you can always choose the light side, but is someone like Luthen necessary, or are they not? And just using him to explore the whole idea of trying to fight against oppression without losing your soul. And he's like, oh, I threw that out the window. And he's sad about it. He's like,
maybe he's wrong though. That's the other thing, is that in week to week analysis, we get to have these conversations. It could all build to a season 2 scene where he's at, because we know season 2 is going to Yavin. That's been in the news. That's been like a whole thing. And I think we all assume that. Yeah, like of course it is. But maybe Luthen does get to Yavin and sees Mothma and Dodonna and Merrick and Cassian and everybody. And maybe he does finally have a moment of, oh, wow, I was a hero too. Maybe it will take the optimistic turn, but there's always a possibility that it doesn't. And if there's one person out there that might say, nah, no, like that's what I've been saying about Cyril, is that Star Wars is so much about redemption. And like you're saying, redemption within the context of the morality play. Of course, if this was the real world, Vader would be tried by the world's governments for hate crimes and war crimes. Kylo Ren, same thing. Any of these people. But is it possible that this will be the first Star Wars show that's like, no, some of you are too far gone. Some of you are Palpatine level, and maybe Cyril does just get shot one day, and it just comes out of nowhere, like boom, blaster. Like Cassian spared him the first time, maybe he won't spare him again. Mm-hmm. Luthen even said in episode 3, he's like, I'll kill him. Like, and I think at the time we were like, maybe it's an intimidation. No, I don't think that anymore. Yeah. Nope, he would have killed him.
I am fully on board with our friend the Templin Institute. His idea is that Cyril joins the Empire and finally feels valued by them and valued by a system, but ultimately they don't, obviously. And so I like the idea a lot that he gets to be a part of the Empire and dies because of it, because they send him on some stupid mission, or
I
who
love
knows
the
why,
or he's just on the Death Star.
Or that, yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Is what if the last shot of Cyril is him with a Death Star gunner helmet on, and he's like, "Oh yeah, first day, new battle station, hell yeah! Like I made it." Finally, calls his mom. His mom's like, "You look so good. You look so healthy. You don't look desperate anymore."
Okay, now I don't think that brown suit.
I don't think I want the holographic call. I think I want him to invite her to the Death Star, because she was making such a big deal of like, you never invited me out to Morlana 1. He's like, Ma, do you want to come to the Death Star? And she's like, sure do. So she's there too.
Oh yeah, she's down in like the mess hall. Like they're just like down there. Like I think they do that in Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga. Like that the elevator, like that one of the floors is like the mess hall, the cafeteria. Like Cyril's mom was there when it all went down. Luke Skywalker blew up Edie Karn canon. Yeah. But I think that's pretty much everything. I'm like running through the episode in my mind, and I know Alex, you and I were talking like we were fortunate enough to see this one a little bit early. You get a limited number of watches, burn through those.
Yeah.
So I think I've seen this episode like 4 or 5 times, but it feels like, wow, like it was so much. But I think that I think we covered everything.
When we got the screeners for these, I don't think we had planned on watching this episode yet. We watched 8,
we were going to spread them out a little bit.
9, and then once we were done with 9, we were like, well, we have to watch 10 now.
Well, we got invited to do a roundtable interview with the writer of the episode, the executive producer, the production designer, and the costume designer. My interviews will be out on like Monday and Tuesday. I think Alden's already put yours out, so you can go listen to them on Ahch-To Radio right now. Yep. But we also, I think the day before episode 8 came out, we got the screeners for 8, 9, and 10. So we watched 8. We didn't want to know anything about episode 9 before we covered episode 8. And then we were kind of do the same thing. So we watched episode 9, and Molly was like, we gotta put on the next one. And like
never more than 12. You can't stop there if you have access to the next one.
Not at all. Yeah. I wondered after seeing 10, I was like, how am I supposed to live a week without being able to talk about how, like, I watched it, then I watched it again, and then I watched it with subtitles and started copying down Luthen's speech, because I was like, look, if I was back in theater or doing anything now, like that monologue is so good, it should be people's audition monologue. Like it should be like, awards don't mean anything. However, they should give the awards to Andy, to Bo Willman, to Toby Haynes. Like this has been just an incredible, this to me, I think One Way Out is up there with like the single, if you had to pick single episodes from things, like how people have like Twin Sons, or if you're me, I love Rendezvous Point from Resistance, or The Jedi from The Mandalorian. This is one of those ones where it's like, yeah, if I had to make a Star Wars mixtape, that goes in there.
Mm-hmm.
But like this episode would not work so well without 9 and 8, and this arc would not work so well without everything that came before it. So I'm just like, as a whole, this entire series is amazing. And that's, it's become a joke where every new week I'm like, well, I have a new favorite episode of Andor, I guess. And that's because it all just builds so well. And it like, I remember seeing the first few episodes and being like, not what I thought it was going to be, but like,
Oh
it
yeah,
was good and compelling, and it just keeps building.
Yeah, we were sitting together, the three of us, at that first screening, and I remember because I was sitting in Molly, you were sitting in between us. I remember having that moment of looking at you, Molly, and being like, "That's a little bit of a weird ending, right?" Like to episode 2, I think it was, with the drums, like the whole idea of so many of these end on downbeats, that to have one that ended in a really rousing way, like episode 3, and then the eye sort of also ends, or not ends in a rousing way, but it is very rousing. Then it's like, oh, that's what the show is doing. The show is doing setup, payoff, setup, payoff, and then 7 was sort of the interlude. And so knowing, as Gilroy has said, that this last one's going to be a 2-parter, it's like, what do you have up your sleeve? And how the hell are you going to break it in a way? Because if it's a 2-part finale, it's like that we're about to have a week of excruciating pain of waiting in between the two.
And that's what I like. I want Cassian. I want Cassian to get a moment like Kino did. I feel like we could use something for the main character of the show to really solidify him, like to go home and actually lead this revolt and be like, oh no, we can do this. Like,
because I think like he's kind of let down so many people on Ferrix that for him to come back and help lead them into a revolution. And I want him to be able to have like a little heart to heart with Marva, and just one last thing, because I don't know that Marva's gonna make it too much longer either, but like one last thing for him and just the town of Ferrix in general would be a great way to kind of close everything out.
I agree. And there's the lingering thread of the sister, and she says to stop looking. Is that because she knows a truth that he doesn't know? Maybe the Canary waitress, ambiguous brothel worker was not his sister at all, and it really is a cold case, and she's gone, and Marva hasn't had the heart to tell him. It could be that. You have that story thread. But I think, Molly, like you're saying, everything is converging on Ferrix. The Deidre storyline has gone to Ferrix. All of our Ferrix characters that are still there. Cassian, the idea of worrying about her. Vel and Cinta being there.
There are 8 spies, all with binoculars, just watching Marva's house. And the second Cassian walks in, they're like, go, 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 go.
Everything. I really think like this idea that, and we've talked about it with some friends off air, like you can't, playing with canon is one of those things where you can't have a decisive victory, because the Battle of Adelon is the first, like, we resisted and survived a siege from the Empire with a little bit of a collective, and then Scarif has to be the first victory, and then in between those, Lothal is the first time that I guess you could say like that was the first successful resistance. Like Adelon goes to Lothal, goes to Scarif, but this could be something like Ferrix gets swept under the rug. Was an idea that people have been talking about, like because it's ISB, it's like the people of Ferrix have already proven they can handle themselves. If they battle Deidre and her death troopers that we see in the trailer, they might, Major Partagaz might be like, Ferrix never happened. Forget about Ferrix. Mining disaster on Ferrix.
I can see that, but I'm also like, any rebel victory that happens before Mon Mothma's speech in Star Wars Rebels, like that's not the Rebel Alliance. Like I'm okay with the A New Hope crawl is like the Rebel Alliance specifically just won its first victory. So if they went on Ferrix, if they kick some Imperial ass, which I'm sure they will, like that's fine with me.
And maybe Tony Gilroy will be the first person to use Death Troopers and actually make them next level troopers instead of just cool. Which is not a shot.
I think Rogue One did it well. Star Wars Rebels, not so much. The Mandalorian.
Rogue One, they were cool.
They were just kind of there.
But yeah, I guess I
killed
just
a lot of people.
That's true. Yeah, I guess I just expected Death Troopers to be like each one is a John Wick level, like warrior type. But yeah, I mean Deidre.
Well, I think there's a high chance of that. The way that they've treated just TIE fighters. TIE fighters are terrifying in this.
Have never been scarier. Yeah, they've never been scarier in the way they've been used. And I know this was the previous episode, so everybody go back to the last stream that Alex and Molly did. But the torture method on Bix, like Bix has had a terrible season, and I think that Bix needs a hero moment, and I want her to get into a straight up bare knuckle box fight with Deidre. She, Bix doesn't carry a lightsaber. She doesn't carry a blaster that we know of. But she's owed. She has been through hell this season. Consistently hell the entire time. Every time we see her, she's beaten up. She needs a hero moment. That's what I'm hoping for the end.
Yeah. I would love to see that.
Well, we need to let you go. We've just been having so much fun talking with you. We went 23 minutes over time. Yeah. I need to go refresh. But good. Let everyone know where they can listen to your podcast, find you online, etc.
Yeah, so you can find me personally at that Alden Diaz, ThatAldenDiaz, Twitter and Instagram. Ahch-To Radio, a Star Wars podcast. It's my show, the Rebels Rewatch show. We do some other programming there that is mostly Star Wars interview based, but when we're in season, we'll discuss the shows like we have been with Andor. But that's where you can find interviews with people in the Star Wars community, other fans. Alex and Molly have both been on multiple times together and separately. Mercedes Vernado and Ryan Johnson were two of the recent ones, and we also had the roundtables that are up now.
Ryan who?
The guy who did Brick.
That's great.
Yeah, that guy. I think he's got a thing coming out. Not important. But yeah, that's the main show. And then also writing. I wrote recently for StarTrek.com. I have a couple things in the works with them, hopefully, if they want them. And then Casterly Talk with Ken Knapsack, where we talk about House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, all things Ice and Fire, Lord of the Rings. And I can also say pretty confidently that that'll be where we'll be covering Willow. I might be leading the charge on that one, but I'll drag Ken along with me. And so that's where we do all the fantasy talk. And Alex and Molly have been on there, and will continue to be as we revisit things like Peter Jackson's movies in the long wait for our shows to come back in the next year. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, there are links already down in the description. So please do check out Alden. And we will let you go. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And we're going to stay and answer chat questions. But yeah, thank you so much, Alden.
Yeah, of course. Anytime, guys. Bye.
Have a great night.
Bye.
And we are going to answer some chat questions. Let's dive
always love
in, but
having Alden on because you get to see in real time his Twitter threads.
Just how they form.
Yeah.
One sentence at a time.
Yeah. Real quick, just so super randomly, I wrote this down because I thought of it after we moved on from the conversation 5 or 10 minutes past, but we were talking about Rogue One. I cannot wait to rewatch Rogue One after this first season is over with, because I feel like there's just going to be a lot of incidental connections, nothing probably purposeful, but I wrote down to remember to bring up Tarkin saying, "We need a statement, not a manifesto." And I was like, oh, that is a slice of gold right there, because, between Luthen and Nimic, it's like they know they need the manifesto. Like they need to do something big and they need to do it now. Like now's their chance. So it's just another reason why Tarkin's pride just gets in the way all the time. Also, what I said, power doesn't panic. Again, Tarkin, all the way up to the destruction of the Death Star, he's like, evacuate in our moment of triumph. He wants none of it. So yeah. I can't wait to revisit a character like Tarkin after knowing everything we know now.
I think this would be a fun idea. After Andor season 2, to rewatch Rogue One and just be like, oh, look at that, look at that, look at that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
I think we'd have a lot more to say. So, yeah.
Well, I'm going to go grab another beer. Do you want anything?
I'm good for now.
We have no ad to play this time. So Molly just has to entertain you for... I'll run, though. I'll still run.
I'll time you. 30 seconds. Go. It's going to take too long for me to bring up the timer on my phone, so we'll just We'll just pretend. But yeah, I loved having Alden on. Like he said, he was sitting next to us when we went to the premiere of Andor and got to see it at the El Capitan Theater, which we were insanely lucky to be able to do. And seeing those first 3 episodes together like that in a theater was just like, it did feel kind of weird about how the episodes started and ended, but by the end of it, I was like, we were all just gushing over how good the show was so far, and we haven't stopped gushing about it still.
Yes, I love this one. Like, the way I know I really, really love this episode is, like we said, we got to see it a little early, and I was just so excited to watch it again.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good.
Right, because like for us specifically, like we, with the channel and these streams and everything, like we dissect Star Wars, we explain it, right? That's what the channel's called. So we go into it and pick it apart and dissect it and analyze it. So we're super into it when we don't get tired of doing that.
Well, it's like I think I watched episode 10 3 or 4 times, and I was still like, I need it again. I need it. Just to be able to sit and watch it and enjoy it without being like, what am I going to make videos on and this and that.
Yeah.
But
I digress. We should get into questions.
Let's take some questions.
Let me find them in chat. 7:32. Wait, no. What time is that Darth Nicholas chat from?
7:32.
It's not 7:32 yet.
Just head up to the top. I can. Well, I know all the way at the top. We'll bring up Muhammad Ali. Thank you so much for like the third week in a row, just dropping in a giant super chat, a very generous super chat. Thank you. Just to say, another Wednesday, another great Andor episode, and I'm sure the commentary from Alex and Molly will be legendary. I hope it was. / still is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much, Muhammad. We really appreciate it. Oh, this is from last week. I gotcha. Okay. So we don't have it to bring it up.
Oh, okay. I see. November 3rd. Yeah, we can see the date. Gotcha.
So,
well, this is not even remotely Andor related, but we'll talk about it. Darth Nicholas wants to know if Vandar Tok'er will get the same appreciation as Yoda, Yaddle, and Grogu. Will they ever be canonized? If I'm not mistaken, that's the Yoda species character from KOTOR on the Jedi Council on Dantooine that helps train Revan when he comes back. But no, I mean, the answer is no, only because most people don't know who he is. So there's no way, like, I always jump to my parents, but my mom is never going to know who Vandar is. But she knows who Grogu is, and that's just...
Oh, yeah.
On-screen characters are always going to beat out even a video game character. I think just more people knew who Yaddle was than Vandar, even before Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah. Just like the inevitable uprising of Ferrix that will be swept under the rug, I think this character will continue to live under said rug. Unfortunately.
He's great, though.
Yeah. I don't know the character, but I'll have to look him up.
Yeah, you didn't get that. You didn't get nearly that far in your KOTOR play.
No. Red Vega has the next super chat here. Thank you. I didn't know the warden/main control guy was Nathan Fielder. Also, that Kino scene at the end made me tear up. This is the best Star Wars has ever been. Who is Nathan Fielder?
I don't think that was actually the main control guy, but he does look like him. Nathan Fielder is a comedian that did Nathan For You, and he's on The Rehearsal now. He's a very... how to describe his comedy? Very deadpan.
Oh, I see him. Okay.
He does look a lot like the main control person, but I actually was trying to find out who plays the main control person. I did not see them listed in the cast. Oh, unless they were listed earlier. There's probably I was trying to find out who played that person, but I couldn't find them.
So that's definitely not him then.
It's not him. I don't think it's like a side by side. They do look very similar.
Okay.
Red Vega is probably just making a joke that they look almost identical.
Okay, gotcha.
And he is listed, Dwight H.M. He's listed as the voice of God, but I think the voice is different because I looked up who played the voice of God, and it's not that guy. So I don't know.
Who knows?
D-Train, thank you for the next one. Even though Return of the Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie, this really is the best written Star Wars since Empire. I hope Andy Serkis gets some award recognition. Me too.
Please.
I think I said that like 3 times a day.
Has he won anything for like a role that he's done in person, not behind any CGI stuff or otherwise?
I don't know. I'm going to look. I'm sure he's won like a Saturn Award or something. I remember like people made a big push to add like motion capture performances to the Oscars because of him.
Yeah. No, I think his part in this just is such a standout role. It would be tragic if he were left out of nomination talk.
Let's see. Nominated for an Emmy, won a BAFTA. Nominee. Won a couple Saturns.
Because he's mostly done movies, not shows, right? Or am I thinking, or am I forgetting stuff?
I think just a lot of the stuff we know him from are movies, but I'm sure he's done television as well.
Right.
He played Grandmaster Varden Kai in Warhammer 40,000 Chaos Gate. I'll have to tell our friends over at Slam Sector. Our friends have
Warhammer connection.
A Warhammer YouTube channel called Slam Sector. If you like Warhammer, go check it out. But yeah, it does seem like he's been mostly in movies. But yeah, he's got some recognition, but I feel like this has Emmy written on it.
Right. It should. I think it should.
I agree, D-Train. He was snubbed as Caesar. The Planet of the Apes movies, like I don't consider myself part of that fandom, but his movies, the new Planet of the Apes trilogy is so good. They're all great. Tan has the next super chat. Thank you. Just says, climb. It's super effective. Yeah, it works every time. I think we're 3 for 3 now.
Yeah, they've used it a couple of times now, and we know about it from K2SO saying it in Rogue One. It has so many meanings in this
I think that it's something that if someone described to me what they were going to do in this series and that they were going to keep bringing up the climb stuff, I'd be like, oh, that's a little on the nose, but it's not. Like the way they pull it off every time just works. And I do go like, oh, they're doing it again, but I like it.
It's like poetry. It rhymes. Keeps coming up.
It does.
Elliot Finn, thank you so much for the super chat. Shout out to the new guy. Had no idea what was going on and got shocked for literally no reason, but still stepped up when it counted. RIP new guy. We talked about this.
Molly had a great point about this.
So we recorded our commentary on this episode today, which is going to be coming out on our Patreon soon. Next couple of days, I assume. I don't know when those come out.
Usually on like Monday, but it'll be soon-ish.
So early next week. But they're a lot of fun because we've seen the episode a few times and we have officially figured out like our true thoughts on it and stuff. But yeah, I was like, when you told me, what did you say he was labeled as in the credits?
I was wrong about that. I saw someone listed
Oh.
as the Apostle, and I thought that I thought that was him. It's not. But
Okay.
you
Well,
still had a good thought about it.
yeah, I just assumed that that guy had just been transferred back in, or he was being transferred back in, like they were talking about happened and caused them to kill all those people. Like he was on another level, probably thought he was done with his time and getting out, and they just transferred him to a different location because, yeah, he did look scared, but when the time came, he was like, oh, I'm in.
I had the exact same reaction watching it of just like, this guy is ready to throw down. Like the second he got a chance, he's like, zap stick. But it does make sense that he could have been a prisoner just being recycled through the system. And he's like, yeah, I am ready to fight back. I was bummed he got shot so fast because I did think good for him for just reading the room and being like, yeah, I'll help.
Mm-hmm. He was ready to go. That's how I'm
so
going to live
many
my life from now on.
I don't know, like some series, some movies, just the way they shoot the extras is so good. And that guy's like a stunt performer, clearly, but still, just some of the extras that they would focus on, I like would find myself getting attached to them. And I'm sure that's down to the direction. And again, I can't tell you like what it is that makes me attached to these just random people, but I do. So
I think part of it is, and I don't want to linger too long because we have a lot of questions to get through, but part of it is like they'll show in the subtitles the lines that the other inmates are saying specifically. So we're reading their exact lines and we're hearing them too, even if they're off screen. And like I've brought up the cinematography before multiple times, but that shot of the night shift starting to get up and realize what's going on, and they're walking down that hallway, and that like really focuses on the guy in the front, but you know, the other people are still in focus, but that guy in the front has this look on his face of like, yep, I'm ready. This is happening. Like, let's go. And they all just have the same, yeah, there he is. They all know what's going on. They've been waiting for this day to come, even if they didn't know the plan.
Right.
It's like they know what's going on. They know that this is their chance.
That shot of him like trusting Kino and putting his foot on the floor. So there's just so many great little moments throughout this entire episode. And again, like that was the last two were so bleak and dark. And I kept telling myself, like, it's gonna be okay. It's all gonna pay off.
Mm-hmm.
And it really did. Thank God.
Yeah. So good.
But yeah, all those little moments and just anytime there's a montage of people running to their freedom, I love it.
And like Alden talked about it a little bit earlier, the usage of silence in this episode is so good. Like the silence leading up to the realization of Kino and the floor, like when he realizes the floor doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
There's a very specific amount of silence there.
Just because I already had it up.
It's so good. Anyways,
that's something that like David W. Collins talks about in the soundtrack show, is that it's just important to note when there is no music and no sound. Like when composers decide now's the right time for music and now is not. And like kind of those little realizations of being like, oh man, there's no sound right now. It's always good.
Yeah.
But Cassia Pitchup has the next super chat. Thank you, Cassia. Luthen is condemned to use the Empire's tools, and Audrey Lorde says the Master's tools will never dismantle the Master's house. Ooh, that's why he won't lead. I don't know who Audrey Lorde is, but I like that. I mean, I absolutely think that Star Wars makes the argument that acting like the Empire to defeat the Empire is not the way to do it. It is how you win the wrong way.
Audre Lorde was an American writer, womanist, radical feminist, professor, and civil rights activist.
I mean, like,
Self-described Black lesbian mother warrior poet.
love it.
Something we need more of in Star Wars.
I think it's very fitting because, yeah, if you use the Empire's tools to bring down the Empire, what are you going to replace it with? Like the same thing. But it's just someone else in control.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a great quote, that Luthen is trying to fight the Empire. He is trying to do the noble thing, but he's doing bad things for noble reasons, and that's not good. That's what Star Wars would argue, at least.
I'm trying to like pick apart this quote just in the terms of Star Wars, and I'm like, okay, so the Master's tools will never dismantle the Master's house. I wonder if that's why, because we see in A New Hope, the way that they talk about the Jedi as being like hokey sorcery and a dead religion, blah blah blah. Like that's not the Master's tools that ends up dismantling the Emperor and the Empire. It's like it's the Jedi that end up coming back and winning, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think that Luthen's methods treat people the same way the Empire does, as if they are not people. They are tools. They are pawns. They are whatever. And so Luthen, which again, I think it's really interesting that they're looking at him and going like, is this kind of person necessary in a revolution? I think in the real world, you'd be hard pressed to go back through any revolution and be like, oh, look at all of these squeaky clean people. Probably not. But for Star Wars and for this morality tale that Star Wars has always been, they are trying to be like, this is what we should all aspire to. Mm-hmm. And also, ideally, we would never have to fight against fascism. But it's also, like that's not realistic.
The peaceful protests of like the 60s and the idea of hippies being all about peace and love. But, behind the scenes, there were a lot of radical protests going on in that era. It just wasn't what people thought of when, you thought about that time period and hippies and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think probably most hippies were just like, yeah, peace, love, a little bit of weed. Why not? But then you did have the radical people who were making bombs and stuff. So
peace, love, a little bit of spice, ain't no thing.
Yeah, a little bit of spice. When are we going to see space hippies in Star Wars? Have we already? I'm trying to think of a space hippie.
I mean, we know a lot of people use spice recreationally, so they're out there. I don't know.
I'm just trying to think of the closest thing we've had to maybe Leox.
Dex? Is he a space hippie?
Dexter? No. But Leox, I could see him in the High Republic, who's basically he's space Matthew McConaughey. Like
Qui-Gon's a space hippie.
Qui-Gon's good, Amaranth.
Okay,
but I don't think he goes into the spice.
Probably not. Maybe not that we know of, anyways. Pink Milk is in the chat. What's up, Pink Milk? Space hippies were eaten by the Ewoks and dressed Leia as one. That's a good point. Where did they get those sandals, anyways?
The sandals, the dress, they braided her hair. Yeah.
Dragonus Prime as the next super chat. It's you, dude. Kino was a true leader in the vein of a proper ship's captain, saving everyone he could and going down the ship. Again, I brought up the Titanic earlier, and this is very reminiscent of the captain of the Titanic just kind of going down with the ship. Or was it the designer? I don't remember. A lot of people went down with that ship. Both of them did. So.
In the movie. I don't know about real life, but...
Right. But yeah, it's a good point. And, I love the zoom in on Kino's face at the end there, where we've gotten so many shots where we zoom in on someone like Cyril Karn's face, where he has that little bit of a smile where he knows he's planted a seed. And for Kino, it's like it zooms in on his face and he has this look of like, I did something good. I may have done a lot of bad things and thought that I was just doomed to be this floor manager guy pushing everybody around and making everyone miserable. But he knows by the end of this that he did his part, and that like even if he doesn't make it out, like he did his part.
He does this great thing, Andy Serkis, where at first he kind of laughs of just like, of course, like can't swim, and he laughs a little bit, but then they linger on him, and it kind of turns to sadness, which really breaks my heart. But yeah, I don't think he planned to go down with the ship, but
I kind of saw it as more resolve than sadness, because like I don't know what they had in mind this whole time of, okay, yeah, one way out. What is the one way out? Did they all know they were going to have to jump and swim? Did they think that they would find a ship or a transport or what? Because like they all kind of know how they got there.
Yeah. I mean, I think that may have been in the back of his mind, but I don't know. That looks, he looks bummed out to me.
He's like, damn it, why did I never learn how to swim?
Yeah, really. It's such a like not Star Warsy problem. Like I was expecting that it would be like, oh, not enough seats on the ship or whatever, but just that it's like can't swim. Like, oh no, that feels like something we should be able to solve.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way everyone was kind of like rushing towards that exit, I want to think that he at least jumped and tried to swim, or maybe he tried to go back in, but I think just the sheer amount of people stampeding towards that exit, he would have had to have gone down.
Like, I think that they're going to leave it open to interpretation forever. I don't think they should tell us. Kind of like I think they shouldn't tell us what they were building. It doesn't really matter for the story. For the story, right. For Cassian Andor, I just said it like Stellan. Cassian Andor. For Andor's story, he needed to see Kino Loy make a sacrifice. Whether or not he ultimately did doesn't really matter. But for this story, I think that we should assume, or at least Cassian will assume, that he did stay behind.
Mm-hmm. And Gio Flores sent in a super chat recently, but I had to bring it up. Hondo is a space hippie.
I don't know. He doesn't really go for peace.
Yeah, I don't know that space hippie as much as just pirate, but I could see it.
But I could see him like really vibing with hippies.
Mm-hmm.
I almost feel like the Path of the Open Hand and the High Republic, they're hippie-ish, but there's something more nefarious going on there.
Hippie adjacent, maybe. Trying to find where we
I'll go ahead and read the next one while you look for it. From Hugo Ease, thank you. Okay. One way out applies to not only the Great Prison Escape, but to all of our heroes, except Lonnie. Poor Lonnie has none. Huh.
Lonnie has no way out, but that's only what Luthen wants him to think.
I think that's a great thing to bring up, though, that Luthen traps people in some way. He imprisons Lonnie, and not just him, but also the ISB. He points out that it's like, the ISB isn't going to let you go. And there's something interesting that Luthen says the ISB won't let you go. And then he says, we've invested too much in you, which I think he means like we, the rebellion, me and Clea, whatever. But it comes off a bit like both sides, both me and the ISB, have invested too much in you, Lonnie. Mm-hmm. And just that he kind of lumps himself in with the ISB in
It's
that
so
sentence.
manipulative, but that's who we're finding out Luthen really is.
But like also that idea that he's fighting the Empire, but he also knows that he is very similar to them.
Right.
But I think that's a very, very good thing to bring up, Hugo.
Yeah. Rudy19 has the next super chat. Thinking about how the guards didn't notice a soaking wet Cassian chilling off to the side makes me giggle. So happy to see the water save Kino. Oh, that is a way that water kind of saved Kino.
That's true.
Because it short-circuited the ability for them to use the floor zappy thing. But it like during our reaction when Cassian runs out of the bathroom to be on program and he's soaking wet, I had to think that like I had to make a joke of like, oh, did you have some trouble in the bathroom, Cassian? Yeah. Like, did anyone think that like, oh, Cassian's having a rough start to his day?
Like he's been in there filing for a while, and was his plan to just file it enough so he could break it one day, or was he just going to file until he's like, whoop, I broke the pipe, and then he comes out and he's soaking wet? But they did a good job. I thought they did a good job, Rudy, of setting up that Cassian and Burko, I think that's his name, they were both underneath the catwalk. So unless the guards looked directly down beneath the grates or whatever, they wouldn't see them. And then Cassian like nodded, and Zal and the other guy started to fight so that all the guards would look over there, and so no one would see soaking wet Cassian. So I do think that was part of the plan of like, they're going to notice me covered in water.
Speaking of Geo, this was from a while ago, but thanks for hanging out with us for so long, Geo. I'm enjoying this show so much. I look forward to it every week. I also can't wait for season 2 already. Haha, you guys are awesome. Thank you. And yeah,
Thank you,
season 2, I'm so excited to see what the next 2 episodes bring. And season 2 and the idea of all the time jumps is going to be awesome to see, but also just knowing that it's going to be over after season 2 is kind of sad.
I'm really torn on the time jumps now. Like reading about what the series was going to be before season 1 began, I was like, that sounds so cool. And now I'm just like, oh man, we couldn't get 1 season per year. And like knowing that was the original plan, and also acknowledging how much work this series obviously was, and for everyone to commit to doing this for 10 years to get 5 seasons done is a lot. So I understand. But selfishly, I'm like, it'd be so much fun to really, really dig into this character.
Yeah. Nick Stark has the next one here. Thank you, Nick. Luthen has some serious dark side energy. Mon Mothma foreshadowed it. Luthen is playing right into the Emperor's hands, ? Could he be pulling strings? Nah. I think Luthen is dedicated to the cause, but just in such a way that he knows he's a lost cause himself. And so if he takes a few people down with him, it's just part of the overall cause, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think the Emperor... I don't get the sense that the Emperor knows who Luthen is. Like, they haven't really touched up on Palpatine. They've mentioned him a couple times. They've mentioned the Emperor, but like we haven't even seen Sly Moore. So I don't think he's doing anything that the Emperor is going to take notice of. I don't think he's specifically pulling any strings. I think Luthen is actually a pretty good manipulator, like Palpatine. I think he's kind of a shadow.
Spun from the same thread, maybe, but
right.
I don't think he has any actual dark side-ness to him.
Yeah. I've seen people throwing around the idea that he's a Jedi in hiding. And yeah, I don't think that either.
No.
But it's something kind of interesting to explore, of like a Jedi who is supposed to be the complete opposite of Palpatine becoming someone not totally unlike them. But I don't know. I think that's a little too far. I don't know.
Yeah. There's something still there about Luthen that we're not quite sure about yet, but we're getting there.
Every new scene with him makes me look at him differently. So,
which is so, it's such a fun journey for fans to be able to go on. Where when we first started out, we were like, oh, Luthen wanted to work with Cassian, knew a bunch about him, wanted to inspire him to do better against the Empire than these small little jobs here and there. But now we're seeing that his motivations are a little darker than we expected, and the way he's manipulating people like Lonnie and using his family against him to stay in it. It's like he does think he himself is a necessary evil, and I don't want to specifically use the word evil, but I'll use it because I can't think of anything else to say. A necessary
I think
evil.
Alden said necessary darkness, which I think
necessary
works fairly well.
Darkness as a part of the overall rebellion. He knows he's a lost cause, and maybe that shouldn't be the case, but I think it's good to see Star Wars showing characters like that, because I think we saw it with Saw Gerrera in Rogue One too. Like, he kind of just accepted his fate.
Yeah. I don't. Rogue One is so weird with Saw because I think there was a full-on different story with him that was planned. I just remember seeing like Moroff and other partisans on a beach and behind the scenes stuff. So I absolutely think the original plan was for Saw to be like, the Rebel Alliance is not willing to do what it takes to beat the Empire. And then when he heard about the Battle of Scarif, I think he was going to come in and have like a Han Solo moment to try to help save the day. And then I think they scrapped all of that. But yeah, Saw and Luthen are interesting to look at now, and how they're different and also how they're the same. Like, I think Saw has shown that he's not willing to be cooperative, where Luthen is. I think Luthen is more behind the scenes and skillful about his moves, whereas Saw is just like, I'm going to go over there and blow that building up. He's more just, there's no subtlety to him. That's the word I was looking for, subtlety.
There's no subtlety. There's no finesse. To quote Paul Hollywood.
Paul Coruscant.
Eric Bruno, the word Andor translates to climb in English. From what language? Is that true?
In Aldani, probably.
That would
just
be
the way that climb keeps coming up over and over and over.
Yeah, that would be a good way to tie in the name of the show. It's not just because Andor is technically supposed to be the main character. It also means climb, which we've seen a lot of.
Honestly, like, I could halfway see that happening in the series. Marva being like, do you know what our last name means?
Downshift 25, thank you for your super chat. One way out, one way out, one way out.
I just wanted to like run around chanting that.
I
Again,
love
Andy
that
Serkis gets all the best lines.
And that, in a place like that, you need a unifying chant like that to just get the point across to everyone else who may not know what exactly is going on.
I loved again, I don't remember this specific prisoner's name, but the guy that ran into that one room and he's just like, one way out, fight. And then he leaves and everyone's like, what? And then the elevator starts to come down and they're like, oh, we get it. Yay. But
yeah,
it just does seem like we workshopped this alone and we're just throwing it on you and we hope you get it.
Right. So good.
Okay, that was Ham. Thank you, Gabriel Lynn.
Ham. There was a person named Ham. I knew it.
Him, like, man, his gung-ho jump into the ocean, good for him. The first
Yeah.
guy looked like he got kind of bumped off of the ledge, and I was like, oh no, is that what we're supposed to do? And he was like, one way out. He really dove into literally the one way out philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Rudy 19, thanks for the next super chat. Seeing Andy struggle with his words, having to inspire hope instead of just yelling instructions, seeing him build confidence in his words. Chef's kiss.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's just one of many reasons why he absolutely slayed this role. And you could see it in his face. He wasn't sure, much like Cyril at first, he wasn't sure about giving a rousing speech, but he was like, oh no, wait, I can do this. And Andor was like, I keep calling him Andor, I don't know why. Cassian is like, or Keith, whatever his name is. He's like, you know how to do this. You do it every day. Tell them what to do. They listen
has
to
to
you.
be you.
It has to be you. And like what Alden said earlier about, you know, Kino's first episode where he goes through all the stuff about how he pays attention. He'll know if anything's wrong before you will. And all the stuff about him being in charge. Like, yeah, no, it has to be him to give that speech. And he realizes it pretty quickly. But at first he is like, I don't know if I should be the one to do this. And like you were saying earlier, Cassian doesn't necessarily take the overriding leadership role in this episode, but he works to inspire Kino to give this speech, and he nails it.
Yeah. I think Cassian knows what is required to lead. I think he was willing to. Like, he even tries when they're walking back into their cell block and everyone's like, what happened? And Kino is still processing it all. But Cassian is like, Olaf is dead. We're all stuck here. And everyone's like, why should we listen to Keith? Basically, they don't say that, but they're just asking a lot of questions. But the second Kino, their manager, turns around, Mr. like, I'm just going to play the game and I will win and I will get out. The second he turns around and he's like, this is true. We have to leave. Like, that has so much authority. It works so well. And Cassian sees that. And so he's like willing to take the step back, take the back seat. And he still like gives orders to Kino throughout the thing. I think, Molly, you brought up earlier, he's like, we got to go. Kino, come on. And he's like, we need to hold the floor. And he's like, learn how to delegate. Someone else can do that. We have to go do this. Like, it is very much Cassian kind of leading, but not being the face of it. And yeah, I love that part with Kino's speech where first of all, it's just like, we have the building. And Cassian's like, do more. You can do more. But I love Kino making eye contact with Cassian as he repeats his words back to him. Of being, and even the subtitles, watching it with the subtitles, it puts it in quotes.
In quotations.
So you know that he is repeating Cassian's words again. It's so good.
Yeah, I noticed the quotations in the subtitles today when we watched it during our commentary, because the first time we watched it, or first time I watched it, we didn't have the subtitles on because it was a screener copy, and I was just like, man, that's such a nice touch for, you know, I guess hearing impaired fans watching. Like, they know that was something that he's taking from Cassian, and I just really appreciated that.
I mean, and even to us, like, I liked seeing the quotations of being like, they want to communicate with you that he is quoting Cassian, that he was inspired by Cassian. Whatever.
And they kept eye contact.
It's all great. Yeah. Masterful episode.
They have a little love triangle going on, and I kind of love it.
Who's the third member?
us.
That's a
the
square.
fans.
That's
The
a square,
fans.
Molly. Okay,
The
the
fans.
fandom as a general.
Don't ask me about shapes. I have to go to the restroom and refresh my drink and powder my face because I am looking sweaty, which I'm not, but I'm glowy. I'm going to bring up the next super chat and I'll be
I got
back
the next one. Thank
shortly.
You. Okay. Look up some geometry while you're gone. Gosh.
I'm still here. I heard that.
Oh no.
Boo. I've got spies in the chat. If he says anything bad about me, you guys will tell me.
Cinta is just off camera, staring daggers at me. Downshift 25, thank you for the next super chat. It didn't look like 5,000 prisoners leaving. Could the one staying behind maybe steal Imperial uniforms and ambush the next prisoner transport? I think they're probably going to leave. I mean, maybe. Like, who's to say? I'm not going to say there's no way that's going to happen because I don't think we're ever coming back to Narkina 5. The way I view it is that Kino saved 4,999 people. Subtract him from that. I think the actual number came out to like 4,900, so like 4,899. I think everyone else got out. When we had the chance to talk with the writer of the episode, he even mentioned that, like, the idea of sacrifice and that Kino sacrificed himself for 5,000 others. So I think in the writer's minds, 5,000 people at least started swimming. We can see ships and spotlights and stuff in the background. So who knows if all 5,000 actually escaped, but that's at least how I am viewing it. And now I have to scroll so far up. This is what Molly usually handles. I can read. The Daily Gaming Videos has the next super chat. Thank you so much. Where do you think Luthen is from? I think he's from Mandalore and is getting revenge for the Great Purge of Mandalore. Well, that hasn't happened yet. But Mandalore was occupied. This is where we just get into lore stuff. Where is your super chat? I'm going to pull up. Basically, the Great Purge has not happened yet. That doesn't happen for another 4.5 years or so. But the Empire is occupying Mandalore at this point. I think Luthen is probably from somewhere fancy, honestly. Like, I think he's probably someone from upper society. I think he's a fancy man with a fancy shop, but has had a change of heart, much like Mon Mothma. I think he has a lot of resources to start with, but no, I don't think he's from Mandalore. But I like that his shop is full of subjugated cultures. We've seen a lot of stuff from Kashyyyk. We've seen 2 things from Naboo, which, like, I don't consider to be subjugated and enslaved, but it's Palpatine's homeworld, so there is that element to it. We've seen Jedi stuff, of course, but we've even seen stuff based off of, like, real world art. The double-headed Rancor serpent, like, that's such a cool piece. So I just think that he is an upper crust person who is gathering all of this art, probably because it's a good cover to act like you're selling all of this art. The way that he described the Deveronian necklace, and he's like, it's got a lost language to it, and the lady's like, that's so sad, and he's like, no, now you get to make it your own. Like, I think he just Force Center said that he probably thinks of the worst thing he could possibly say in that moment, and then he says it. That's his cover. But we will move on to Rick Villanueva. Thank you for the next super chat. Hey kids, will we see a running of the Narkina inmates at Celebration next year? That's a great idea. I love that.
love that idea.
Yeah, because pretty easy cosplay.
Mm-hmm. The jumpsuits.
Uh-huh. And you can just like run through the hall screaming one way out. I'm into that. I might get a jumpsuit together just for the chance that could happen.
Sorry.
What are you doing?
I set myself up for disappointment when I made this my background because now I can see if it's crooked.
Oh, like the levelness of it.
Yeah. Whatever.
Everyone has been in the chat talking about how crooked your background is.
It just gets that way. I don't know what happened. The running of the Narkina inmates would be a hilarious addition to Celebration because they already have the running of the Wilro hoods, and this is like such a more realistic.
They should meet and explode.
This is such a darker. Everything about it is darker, but still.
But it would be so much fun to just run around screaming "One way out, one way out."
A great Groot cosplay, although we'd have to be barefoot, which can get gross. But
we can wear those Hobbit slippers
that look like feet.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
We'll all have prosthetic feet. We'll have to say shoes allowed for the running of the Narkina inmates.
Yes.
Daily Gaming Videos has another super chat. Thank you so much. When Kino said, "I can't swim," I said, "No," like Darth Vader. I have been waiting to bring this image up because that was our reaction.
Basically, yes. The no.
just so upset. Like
we were just like, "Are you kidding me? At this point, you're gonna drop that bomb on us?"
Like, I had the anticipation that he was not going to survive just based on what happened on Aldhani. I was like, okay, this is going to be a bloodbath. And I didn't want to get too attached to Kino. But then he kept on keeping on. And I was like, he's going to do it. So the fact that he didn't die, but he just couldn't continue on the journey was so much worse.
Mm-hmm.
And
his journey was complete.
Amazing writing. I don't want to act like I don't love it. I love it and I hate it is the best way to say it.
Basically, yeah. Izzy has the next super chat here. Hope Andor ends with survivors reacting to A New Hope. Well, we kind of already know how Andor ends because Tony Gilroy has not been shy about talking about it. And that's fair for him to do because we know Cassian's story goes into Rogue One, so it probably ends kind of where we see it start for him in that movie. So
I wonder how that's
but it would
be
fun. It would be fun for him to just add in some little bits and pieces of survivors reacting to what's happening next.
I think that there was a rumor last week that there could be some spin-off shows to this, which then I think we could get some reactions to what happened. I do think that would be cool. The rumor is basically that Adria Arjona has been signed on for more stuff outside of Andor, which I'm like, okay, if Tony Gilroy and Diego Luna are like, we're going to do 2 seasons of this and move on, I respect that. But then I do think they could keep up this genre of storytelling, this spy thriller beyond Rogue One, beyond A New Hope, but we could get to see Bix or some other character that gets to live in the world that the galaxy that Cassian helped save. Mm-hmm. And we could still get this very grounded take on Star Wars. I think that they would keep that going.
I have to bring up, this is a tweet from the official Star Wars account.
Oh. Hold on.
It says recommended support for the latest episode of Andor. Really?
That's terrible.
I'm sad about it. I'm not mad about it. I'm sad about it.
I'm mad and sad.
the comments of some of our other friends, Triad of the Force said savage. Charlotte from Sky Talker said Star Wars. Hello, ow. Yeah, savage. But I love it. I love when social media accounts can be a little bit savage like that and get away with it. It's all good.
I don't like it.
It's all good.
Don't approve of it.
Laser Bowl, thanks for the next super chat. I love that Andor is full of strong female characters facing major adversities, and yet none of them are victims of sexism from those around them. They are just strong, capable women crushing it. I agree. And I think Dedra is a good representation of that from a side that we don't see very often. Like, she is good at her job, and we kind of rooted for her in the beginning, because normally we see someone like that fighting to do her job in that environment, and the men around her are kind of like, you're being a nuisance, but she's doing what she's supposed to do. And then to see a character like that become so much more sinister, and then you start to not root for her, and that's kind of the point of how they positioned her arc in these episodes, to like root for her at first and then realize, no, she can be just as bad as any of the male characters in Star Wars who are portrayed as these awful, evil villains. So that's an aspect of like feminism that we don't get to see very often, that I love.
I do think there was like a tiny element of sexism from Blevin, and Partagaz did mention something like, we all know you have to be even more on the ball than everyone else here. Again, like kind of like the arranged marriage thing with Davos Golden. They didn't come out and say it, but there was a little bit of it. But yeah, like the way they set Dedra up has been masterful.
But that could also be because she's new there.
Yeah, that's true.
She's just a new
I'm kind of
recruit.
Building off of Denise Goff has talked about the ISB being like, she's a woman in a man's world.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think that's just I think that's one tool that they used to make Dedra an underdog at the start. Whoops. I accidentally hit the space bar, and apparently that's what that does. I think that they were just trying to really make Dedra feel like someone that you could root for within the Empire. Like, look at how terrible the Imperials are, and she's just trying to do her job. And then when she gets success, and like we talked about a lot last week, where she starts punching down, you're like, oh no, she's terrible too. And she always has been, but
yeah,
we just kind of like we're blinded by it.
And similarly with no, I can't remember her name, Luthen's assistant,
Clea.
Similarly with Clea, like, she's on the other side of things, but she's just as ruthless, if not more so.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen a little bit of that so far. So, and Vel and Senta and Bix and Marva, Mon Mothma, like, there's so many good ones in this show. Great female characters that we can root for and root against, and still just be excited to see more.
Yeah. I said the next super chat is from Gio Flores. We kind of talked about this. He asked, where is the manifesto? I do think it's still above the shower on Niamos. I think it's there. I think it's okay. And I think he'll get it back.
I'm not sure if we'll see him get it back, but I like to think that he does. And
I just think this is a show that you could really dissect shot by shot, and I don't think they show you anything on accident.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel pretty tinfoil hat person, conspiracy theorist, when I look at them wheeling whatever they're building out of the room, and I'm like, that just made the Separatist insignia. I don't know what it means exactly, but I feel like that was on purpose. And I feel like they definitely showed us Cassian hiding that box on purpose. I think he will get it back.
Well, and even if we don't, it's still given us, I can't remember if it was you or Alden that brought up just the simple idea that Nimic wanted Cassian specifically to have it.
Mm-hmm.
And they had talked about a little bit of it in the previous episodes before that one, of like what the central message of it was. And we got an idea of what Nimic was about. So just the fact that Nimic wanted Cassian to have it specifically shows us that just how influenced Cassian really was by everyone on Aldhani, not just Nimic, but specifically Nimic because of the manifesto stuff. And like, I like to think that he was reading it on his downtime on Niamos. Yeah. I'm so
still don't know
tempted
how to say that.
Call it Space Florida, but Niamos.
Space Florida's fun. I don't think that we necessarily need to see the manifesto again, but I'd like to. But I think just like you said, the simple fact that Andor knew Nimic wanted him to have it, I think is important, and I think affected him. Whether or not he ever reads it, I still think it altered the trajectory of his life.
Yeah. And yeah, having Vel be the one to tell him, like, he wanted you specifically to have this, it created a bond that wasn't really planned, but is there now.
Yeah. I see people asking, could it be on the ship? Could it be with Marva? And they did show in Niamos on his hotel room or whatever, when he was in the shower, he had this box and he had credits, he had his blaster, and the manifesto was in that box. And then he hid it upstairs, up above the shower, and then he got arrested. So that's where I think it is, unless, like you said, maybe the cleaning lady came in and got radicalized and joined the rebellion, which is also an amazing idea.
I want to say, I didn't say cleaning lady, because that's assuming all of the janitorial
cleaning
staff
person,
are women. The janitorial person may have found it and gone on to be a pivotal member of the rebellion.
Right.
Or maybe he made a copy of it, because StarWars.com did make a point to confirm that it was a digital, like, voice recording, not a written, like, notebook. So he could have made a copy of it.
It's on his
uploaded
Tumblr.
it. It's on all the torrent sites. It's slowly being found that way.
He did Nimic has an Alden Diaz Twitter thread. It's way too long.
Yes. Bones McCoy has the next super chat. While Luthen was getting his Emmy nomination, I think he was also telling us that Mon is going to have to let go of her daughter, just like Lonnie has to.
I'm so far. Go ahead.
I don't think he was telling Lonnie that he has to let go of his daughter. I would think he was just reminding Lonnie how important he is to every side of this operation. And I think he was using the fact that Lonnie has a family as a way to manipulate him. But I don't think he was telling him he has to let go of that. He just was reminding him that he has to stay in the game if he wants to keep his family.
Yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily think you're wrong about what Luthen would want Mon to do, but I don't think Mon's going to go that way. Like, I think that Luthen is wrong about a lot of stuff. I think Luthen, Cinta, Vel parroting Cinta's words, like all of this, like fighting the Empire comes first, and we'll take the time that's left over to have together. Like, I think that's the path that leads to where Luthen is, where he's like, I looked down at my feet and there was no ground beneath me, and I have burned my soul. I have no kinship, no love, no inner peace. Like, he has lost his soul for this fight. And I think that's why. I think it's because he would view his daughter as a chess piece, which is why I thought that Vel was his daughter for a while. And I guess she could still be, but I doubt it. But like, yeah, I kind of agree with you that he would probably tell Mon Mothma, to, like, yeah, give up your daughter and get your $400,000 loan for the sake of the rebellion. But it's like, if you're sacrificing your humanity, then like that defeats the purpose.
Yeah, I agree. So many facets of Luthen that we still have yet to learn.
I'll let you read the next one.
Intoxicated Gamer, thank you for this super chat. Sorry, Molly, but Brasso definitely has a beard and not just a mustache. His chin hairs are just whiter, so it makes the mustache part stand out more. That's semantics. If you don't understand what this is about, go watch our last Q&A episode from this past Saturday. I think Brasso, he's the guy on Ferrix that's friends with Andor, and he is like one of the minor people. We're not sure what they do, but I think he has a mustache. I'm gonna stick with that.
You can keep being wrong. That's fine.
That's all right.
It's okay. You're allowed to be wrong. I still love you. Farzan has the next super chat. Thank you, Farzan. I hope we see Kino next episode. He is still alive by the end. I want to see him find another way to escape. We kind of talked about this already, but yeah, I think that his story in Andor is done.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, they left it ambiguous at the end there for a reason. We can kind of fill in the blank with what we think happened, but I don't think we're going to see either way play out.
I think it's better to leave it up to the imagination.
Another super chat from Dragonus Prime. I've just had a thought. Luthen's ISB codename of Axis, when talking about rotation, has a notable synonym, fulcrum.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was on purpose. Like, we already know that Saw Gerrera and Ahsoka have both used the codename Fulcrum, and Cassian eventually does as well, and Callus. But those are down the line. So I think that they were probably thinking about those code names when they nicknamed Luthen Axis as well.
Yeah. I didn't know fulcrum was a synonym for that.
I don't think it's a synonym, but is it a synonym? Like, a fulcrum is like the hinge on a... Now I don't know. I forgot all my elementary school teaching on simple machines.
I've never heard the name fulcrum before.
It's like a hinge, which can still be a point of rotation. So I guess it's kind of a synonym.
It's like a connection, a connecting point.
Like, an axis is what something rotates on, like the planet rotates on an axis. I think your elbow is like a fulcrum for your hand. I don't know. I'm probably saying something real dumb.
I like the idea of axis because it's something that's invisible, but we know it's there because of the things that rotate around it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. The fact that it's invisible.
No one can point it out exactly, but we know it's there.
But we know it's
like
there.
Hope.
Yeah.
The idea of hope. Hope is like the sun. Blah, 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 blah.
Blah, 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 blah. Yada, yada, right? Yada. Star Wars.
Yeah. Daily gaming videos with another super chat. I have a feeling we'll never know what happened to Kino. Yeah. I'm glad it's not just us that thinks that. But yeah, probably won't know. Sebastian Saint Armor, thank you so much for the super chat. I just finished The Tempest Runner for the first time, and it's very interesting how different prisoners are treated, punishment versus reform, and how it clearly mirrors today, USA versus Norway.
That
I don't know what Norway's
I did not
prisons
think
are
about
like, but we did just watch the movie
13.
13th on Netflix, and that is a very heavy movie, but eye-opening if you've never seen it.
Yeah. We watched that because I was listening to Force Center podcast, and Joseph Scrimshaw was talking about the episodes of Andor in relation to that documentary. I had never seen it, and I kept comparing the prison stuff to like Amazon. And I do think the prison arc is meant to criticize corporations, but the use of slave labor within prisons is like, oh, that happens now today. And I did not know that. And watching 13th was just like, yeah, that's a rough watch, but an important one. So yeah, watch that. It's on Netflix.
Rough in a good way, where it's like it gets you fired up. Yeah, it's educational and it gets you fired up for the right reasons. Like, it's all there, it's all laid out for you.
Yeah, and Geography Geek mentioned, like, it is legal. It was set up. The reason it's called 13th is because it was in the 13th Amendment, is that, like, we're abolishing slavery unless you're a prisoner, and then we can do whatever we want.
Which, boo.
Yeah.
Not to get too heavy, so I'll just say boo.
I don't know what Norway's prisons are like, but yeah, the idea of punishment versus reform, they definitely lean into the punishment side of prison, and that not only like you serve your sentence, this kind of relates to Andor too. You serve your sentence, then you get out, and you're still being punished.
Mm-hmm.
Like, now you can't vote. It's harder to get a job. It's like there's so many things.
The system makes it so hard to get anything done after you've done what you're supposed to do, after you've followed the rules and done your time. It's not like over.
You served your time, and then it's like you get to go home, but you're still in another prison of sorts. Look at you go, Andor. Great job. Callum Reed, thank you for the next super chat. I'm in constant amazement at how stupidly good Andor is. Episode 10 was stunning. Agreed. Stunning. Hoping we get prequel novels for Kino and Luthen. Love your channel, guys. Thank you so much, Callum.
Stunning.
Luthen, I feel like he's a character that could get a novel. I'll watch anything with Kino in it as well. I'm kind of praying they don't start to put merchandise out of him, because I'll buy it. Like, I more just want, I thought
you meant like that might not be sensitive. I don't know.
No, I just don't want to fill up my room with more stuff.
Yeah. This show is my Negroni Spagliato.
With Prosecco in it.
Let me see. Julianne Keenan, thank you so much for the very generous super chat. Andor is for smart folk like y'all. Let me know, or let them know. I love this channel. Thank you so much. I don't know. I know Alden is smart because of his Twitter threads. I know that much. And I feel smart sometimes, but I think it takes me a couple of watches to get there. So keep sending us screeners so that I can so that Molly can form these official thoughts and opinions about stuff, because otherwise I just feel like I'm swimming without a raft.
I can't swim. You have great insights all the time.
Thank you.
But it's funny. I think it was in our live stream with Eckhart Slattern and Templin Institute back in Book of Boba Fett. I said something like, I love Star Wars because I can pick up. It makes me feel smart because I can pick up on the symbolism, which is like these stories are for a younger audience than I am, and I'm like, I get it. And so it is interesting to jump into something like Andor and be like, oh man, like this is so much heavier. But
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, not to toot our own horns, but I feel like we're keeping up pretty well. I feel pretty good about it.
Toot toot.
Toot toot. I've had a beer and a half. I'll toot.
Oh. Oh. You know what? We've had a rough couple of days. It's time to toot our horn sometimes. Ryan Allen McKinney, thank you so much for your super chat. Do you think we can see an entire Star Wars series without a Jedi sighting? I think that's going to be the case for Andor.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I think that'll happen. Unless Luthen is a secret Jedi, but I don't buy into that.
I feel like one of the reasons why Tony Gilroy took on this project was specifically because it wasn't about Sith or Jedi. It was about the real people of the galaxy, the workers, the prisoners. Like, it was just more down to earth, more realistic about what life is like behind the scenes. And I love it for that.
There's a really good interview with Tony Gilroy and the Empire Magazine film podcast, I think, that he talks about just the freedom that Star Wars allows. And I don't think he realized that maybe when he was brought on to help fix/finish Rogue One. And then he was like, okay, well, that was neat. I'll go do other things. And then he was still kind of like attached to it and still had some questions and curiosities, but he's talked about being able to write about revolutions and that it's not a historical drama. So you don't have to recreate this one revolution. He's like, I can pick and choose what I want out of any revolution and then adapt it into Star Wars, whether it happened 50 years ago or 1,000 years ago. Right. And it's kind of a George Lucas approach, but more like historical instead of mythological, of being able to find these archetypes within history and repeating that through Star Wars. I think it's really neat. Yeah. What was the question?
Can we see a Star Wars series without a Jedi sighting?
Okay, and then you were talking about keeping it more like grounded.
But I did want to bring up, I keep bringing up the roundtable interviews that you guys did, and some people have put them out. Ours aren't coming out until early next week, but you can go to Ahch-To Radio, Alden Diaz's podcast, and listen to them. It came up there with, I forget who it was, but it was about whoever it was that worked on Chernobyl.
Luke Cole.
And they were asked, like, what was it like? How is it different working in this universe versus that one? And he was like, well, Chernobyl was much more of a documentary view on how, like, what went down, how things went down. They had to follow a little bit more strict guidelines for it. And he was just like, this was a great little sandbox to be able to play in, because we know the major story beats and the major themes and ideas that we want to show and get the point across for, but it's Star Wars, so you can get a little weird with it. That's not his words, those are my words, but listen to the roundtable interviews.
Which I've loved the production design of this show.
I know. I chickened out for those interviews because it's like one question per outlet, so I was like, but I wish I had gotten in there.
They're fun. We'll do another one. Jane Dalton, thank you for the next super chat. Do you think that Kino knew that he had to swim away to escape and was just super noble, or was he heartbroken to discover he wasn't going to get away? I think he was heartbroken.
I think he knew.
I think maybe he had it in the back of his mind, but was hopeful. But I don't know. In his face, I see sadness.
We don't know how long he was in there. That's the problem. Like, we don't know if everyone is brought in there like Cassian was, where you are brought in on a transport and you see how the transport comes and docks and drops you off, and you're standing there next to someone who is literally telling you, enjoy your last bits of fresh air while you can. We might not get it again. If he was brought in like that, if Kino was, then I have to assume he imagined having to swim out of there one day.
All right.
I just knocked an empty can off my desk, but it's fine. It was empty. Beer cans. I promise my desk isn't full of beer cans.
Just,
but that beer can
if you
has
move
been...
a little bit, just clang.
I will admit that empty beer can has been on my desk since our last live stream. So take that how you will on how I live my life. It's fine.
I will point out that the last time we did a Blue Bantha Milk live stream, we had to have props. We had to have knives as props. And so Molly brought all of our steak knives upstairs.
Not all of them, just these 4.
Oh, really? How many knives are downstairs right now? That many. There's that many steak knives down in our knife holder because Molly brought them all upstairs. This was months ago, and they're still in there.
We don't eat any meat that's tough enough to have to use one of these knives versus a butter knife.
I know.
These just live up here now.
I know. That's what I'm saying. You brought them up months ago, and they're still up here.
It's for my Freddy Krueger cosplay that I'm working on.
Well, sorry for that tangent.
Al, thank you so much for the next super chat. I love the messaging about
hegemony.
Hegemony? What is that?
I don't know. I was about to Google it. I think it's like leadership of some kind, right?
I think so.
Leadership or dominance, especially by one country or social group over others.
And it's pronounced hegemony? Hegemony?
I think so.
Okay. I love the messaging about hegemony and consciousness in this series, emphasizing the, quote, the pace of repression outstrips the ability to understand it. Yeah, that was something that Nimic mentioned that I thought was very astute on his part.
I love that line still. And I feel like this is something that Nimic would have said because I have to just stare at it and read it. Like, I remember pausing the stuff that Nimic said and being like, let me unpack that because he's talking so fast.
Yeah. Well, he has so much to say, and it's like everyone else on Aldani is like, we've heard it, Nimic, but Cassian shows up and he's like, oh, someone new to talk at.
I love the messaging about leadership and consciousness in this series, emphasizing the pace of repression outstrips our ability to understand it.
That's just me. It just shows you that, like, once you're being repressed, you don't realize it. By the time you realize it, it's too late.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
Like I'm the more people of Aldani.
The leadership and the conscious Luthen super conscious about how he started to lead this rebellion and whether or not what he was doing was all around right or just the best and fastest way to win. And if you don't have that in the back of your head, then you're going to wind up like Luthen. Mm-hmm. You're going to you're going to burn your soul for a sunrise you'll never see. Mm. I think that's what Al is getting at.
Yeah, I think that's right. Garth McMurray has the next super chat. One of my super chats in here was addressed in this with Leda Mothma's possible arranged marriage for tradition and power deals, very Game of Thrones. Yeah, I think I remember that. We were talking about that in the last stream, or maybe 2 streams ago.
I think Garth put forth the idea that, oh, will Lita have an arranged marriage? And I think we were probably like, nah. And then immediately we're like, oh no, poor Lita.
Yeah. And I have so many conflicting thoughts about this in my mind, because I have it in my head for some reason that Lita is all about tradition, and she actually might want this to happen because she's been so heavily influenced by Perrin, who is awful, and he doesn't really care how he's influencing her, just so he gets to keep living this cushy lifestyle. But a long time ago, someone once asked us, like, do we think Mon Mothma's husband and daughter will die because eventually she ends up alone, or what we assume is alone, leading the rebellion? And that's stuck with me ever since then, that like Perrin, I could care less what happens to him. He'll just go find some other sugar mama to like take him on. Lita is who I'm worried about, and I'm worried that she will be into the idea of meeting this boy and having this arranged marriage for whatever reason. Like she might be into the Chandrilan customs, and that could break Mon Mothma's heart even more so. And it will at least lead her into the ability of being alone and being able to go full on with the rebellion. But it also means that she basically loses her daughter in the process to this custom of her homeworld that is like constantly, the Chandrilan customs keep coming up as a way to just imprison Mon Mothma further and further.
Yeah. I think you told me you got the Chandrilan custom thing from StarWars.com. Lita's databank entry. Her
databank entry kind of hinted that she was a fan of the customs.
But
then we got her thing with the worm that she was like, ew, that's gross. But
yeah,
that's just a teenager thing to say, I think.
I don't know. I have hope for her. I agree with you. Like, couldn't care less about Perrin. Lita is just a teenager, and everyone goes through that rough phase. And I hope she comes around. But I did want to bring up Ice saying that Perrin's way past his prime. He won the lottery once with Mon. No one gets that lucky twice. Yep. And like him saying, oh, well, Vel, you're going to have to find a widower. All the good ones are taken. As she said, like, no one's going to want Perrin.
That's true. Without Mon Mothma, Perrin is trash.
He's just a trash man.
He is. Let's put him in the trash.
Spiral, thanks for the next super chat. My first name is Nato. Sounds like a Star Wars name. It does. I'm looking forward to my name being in Star Wars canon. You know, wait long enough. Nato.
Yeah, Nato, and they put in parentheses pronounced like Watto. So I think that's.
Hold on.
Oh, Alex is gonna look and see if that already exists.
It's close. Nadon Farms was a Tatooine-based moisture farm company.
So close.
But not quite.
Eleanor Mueller, what's up, Ellie? Thanks for the super chat. Not watched yet. My coin in the wishing well for Kino's safety. Love y'all both. Sorry to hear Herschel Walker wasn't beaten out of hand.
Ellie, come on. We're trying to ignore the real world, but yeah, that sucked. But we're going to a runoff, so again, that's just Warnock's thing. He has to win in a runoff. That's how he won last time. That's how he'll win again.
I'll be honest. I think going into this being really naive, just thinking very positively on the people that we were supporting, and yeah, the fact that Herschel Walker got so many votes in Georgia just blows my mind, and I still can't really fathom it. So I'm confident that Warnock will win in a runoff. So there's that at least. Whoever voted for Oliver, get your
Come on now.
Pull on your big boy pants, big girl pants, big person pants, and go do the right thing, please.
Well, now they have to, because it's just going to be the two of them.
Anyways.
Thank
you, Ellie, for your super chat.
Enjoy the episode.
Yes. Another super chat from Garth McMurray. We got more THX 1138 references with shocking the guards and escaping. Andor and Melshi running towards the suns was like the climb up into the sunrise. I still haven't seen that, and I need to see it.
I should rewatch it with you. I've seen it twice now, and the last time I saw it was like a year ago or so. Or maybe it was earlier this year. But still, it's a bizarre movie.
Yeah.
But after all of the prison stuff, I kind of want to be a little more ready with my THX knowledge, and I am not there. Joel Ramirez has the next super chat. Thank you, Joel. Climb. I can't swim. These parallels with great unsung heroes, Kino and Nimic. God, such amazing storytelling, and I'm so happy it's in our beautiful universe. By the way, Kino knew and still fought for others. I think, again, it's just one of those like up for interpretation things. I think either one is great. They're both great interpretations.
You're right, though. Such great parallels, such great themes of sacrifice in this episode. We're getting such good Star Wars right now.
The format of Cassian going and having these experiences with these very specific characters, I like it a lot. Of like just seeing him learn. I assume he had like that fire to fight the Empire, which we saw in those flashbacks, and seeing how that died with age, and now it's like coming back. It's really good.
Yeah. Ricky O'Matt has the next super chat. When Eckert's letter predicted Jung was a rebel mole, I was like, that's a bit of a stretch. Definitely eating my words now. Hashtag pour one out for Kino. Yeah, we had some people in our chat last week that were kind of thinking the same thing, like making that prediction. And like, unbeknownst to, I think, our viewers, we had already seen this episode last week. So we had to be like, interesting. I don't know.
I tried to treat it as if, because I did not see that coming. Not at all.
I didn't either. But because we just knew about it.
Good for Eckert's ladder, that hack. I'm just kidding. We're good friends. I remember someone bringing that up and me being like, okay, just remember how surprised you were when Young was the mole, and be like, I just can't see it. So hopefully we sold that.
I think we did.
Because I just didn't want to ruin it for anyone.
That's what I was doing by knocking that beer can on the floor. I was pouring one out for Kino. Francisco 501st, thanks so much for the next super chat. The question we should be asking: would Mon Mothma sacrifice her daughter to fund the Rebel Alliance without getting caught? So another thing that we kind of discussed already, but I don't know. Like, will she actually think about doing this to get funding from this thug character? Or, we brought this up earlier, if she goes back to Luthen and confronts him.
We talked about this privately earlier.
You brought it up.
Chat. Yeah.
I think you brought it up earlier on the chat that like Luthen knows. No? Well,
No.
Okay. Mon Mothma knows that Luthen had a hand in the Aldhani job, which led to a bunch of money being stolen, a bunch of credits. So I think Mon Mothma knows Luthen has access to those credits, and maybe she goes to him.
I hope she doesn't go through with the Lita stuff. I don't think she will. because I like that. That's kind of the difference between Luthen and Mon Mothma. I think Luthen would do it. I don't think Mon Mothma will. She might still go to Luthen for help. But I just don't think she will sacrifice her daughter's future for the galaxy's future. I don't know.
Mhm.
Like, she might. I'll be interested to see what they do and what they want to say about all of or using this whole situation. It's a great little conundrum to be like, should you sacrifice your child in a sense for everyone else's children?
Yeah, it's hard to guess on something like this because this is a part of Mon Mothma's life and career that we haven't seen much of, having this husband and this daughter. So it's hard to say. I don't know. It's at this point in the game, I want to say that she's going to stick to her guns and be like, absolutely not. But I think the daughter also deserves to have a say in it, even though she's been so heavily influenced by Perrin that like she could just not realize what she's asking for if she is down to do this.
Yeah. I did want to hold before you do that. I wanted to bring up. We have no idea what's going to happen in the next 2 episodes. We have not gotten screeners for those. Don't think we will. We only got the prison arc because we had an opportunity to interview the people who worked on the prison arc specifically. So,
going forward, we have no idea what's happening.
If someone had asked us in the middle of episodes 9 and 10 if we had gotten the screeners, I would have said yes, and I wouldn't have lied about it. But we have no idea from now on.
Lesmond Degant, thank you so much for the next super chat. I don't know about hippie, but Jar Jar was a space Rasta and clearly smoked weed.
When he met Qui-Gon Jinn, he was going for a brisky morning munchin'.
Ooh, love it. He had the morning munchies. Absolutely. I am so down with that.
Oh, I like that. Ian Nofield, thank you for the next super chat. Kino's hesitation at the intercom reminded me of Vel's ordinary people in an extraordinary situation. Yeah.
That's a good parallel.
And I think that's fun. Like, Vel's hesitation, that was the moment it all became real for her. And we have Kino, who from the start was like, I'm going to pretend that I'm dead and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like whatever was happening up until that point wasn't truly real for him. But then he hesitates at the intercom because it's not just about him anymore. He's like, okay, now I'm responsible for 5,000 people's lives. And again, like Vel was kind of responsible for 7 people's lives when she had to decide like, yep, we're doing this. I'm jumping over the fence. So yeah, I think just like seeing these people feel the weight of the responsibility of someone else's life is really good.
Yeah. Chazertron 5000, thank you so much for your super chat. They had just come into the conversation late and just said, glad I made a live stream, wanted to give some support. Thank you so much.
I see. Oh, okay, I see. You just condensed that message. I got it.
I did, yeah. And then Joel Davis has the next one. I think Luthen is more ruthless than Saw. For while I see Saw as loyal to his own people, I think Luthen is completely detached from everyone, and they're all numbers in a game. Mm-hmm. I like that because, yeah, I think Luthen is just playing this like a game and using people like they're dispensable. Yeah. And I think Saw might do that as well, but we haven't seen him do that specifically. And he does seem more loyal to the idea of the partisans movement.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest. The difference between them is that Luthen is like, even my allies are pieces on a board, and some are more valuable than others, and I have to weigh the risk of losing Anto Krieger versus and 50 of his men versus Lonnie Young. Saw values his close allies. Like, we even see that. He says, like, I'm not going to sacrifice my men for Anto Krieger. Like, he has loyalty to his people, but he goes too far with, like, I mean, the Jeddah attack is really all you need to see, is this crying child, this innocent civilian in the middle of these explosions where the Empire is, or where the partisans are like, we have to hurt the Empire no matter what. If civilians get hurt, if children get hurt, so be it. But we did hurt the Empire. And so, like, he goes too far that way. Luthen, I think Luthen would be willing to do that as well. But he also is just like, you're useful to me until you're not.
Right.
Darth Nicholas, thank you for the next super chat. We finally got to see a snippet of the canceled Star Wars Underworld series at the end of this Andor episode, which I believe was also planned to be set on Coruscant. Wouldn't surprise me if this was a callback reference. Wouldn't surprise me either. I mean, the not Delhi, the butcher in the Book of Boba Fett, where we first see the Mandalorian. Someone from Star Wars 1313 talked about how they designed a very similar set, and like it does seem like they are reusing ideas that have been tossed around. I mean, Star Wars always does that. Any concept that is brought up might be used in a later series. So I don't know that it was specifically like, let's do Star Wars Underworld in this scene, but it's close.
Yeah, I don't think so, but, and this might be a good question for the the set designer, but like when we first saw this portion of the episode happening, we were like, oh, is this the Rings of Kafrene? But no, it's just one of the lower levels of Coruscant, and not even the lowest levels. Like, we looked at that elevator, and there were so many more levels to go.
Well, it only goes up to 3 digits. You can't even reach 1313 on that elevator.
Yeah.
I assume you could only get to 999.
Which, that just goes to show how much of Coruscant has been unexplored, and hopefully will be explored going forward.
Yeah, like that was mid-level Coruscant at best. I just want to say my mom just texted me and said, "Whew, just watched Andor. On the edge of my seat. I hope Kino jumped and someone helped him swim."
She knows how to hope for hope. Porter Pierce, thank you so much for the next super chat. You should cover the lore of the Star Wars Uprising mobile game, since many no longer have the opportunity to discover it for themselves.
I have not played it. I'm not a mobile gamer.
Is there lore behind that? I mean, assume there is, but...
It was a story-based mobile game. And I do wish that I had played it now. If it came out today, I would have absolutely been like, all right, I got to play this thing. But it came out in like 2015. And I just didn't.
I think I remember it. But no, yeah, we're not mobile gamers.
Yeah. I do wish that I had played it, especially because they do keep pulling stuff from it. Like quite a bit. Which I have to read about, but I don't know it from experience. Caravaggio 2012, thanks for the super chat. Just want you both to know that I appreciate your thoughtfulness and positivity. Now give me my Revan KOTOR show.
Thank you.
Maybe someday. But yeah, thank you.
Maybe someday. I think definitely someday.
I think we'll do KOTOR at some point, or Old Republic.
Kelly E, thanks for the next one. Bet that was a quiet elevator ride back up, LOL.
I like that.
Yeah, he's probably like, well, okay.
And he's got to take his earpiece and he's got to put it back up on the hidey hole.
Yeah, he's like, well, okay, maybe you'll have a better plan of action next time, but I wasn't expecting that. Alexander, thank you so much for the next one. As a Swede, it would be fun if they let Luthen speak Swedish to explain his accent. Well, I mean, they've never really explained accents in Star Wars, in previous stories and shows and movies. So I don't think he needs to explain it, but I would love to hear him speak Swedish.
Yeah, he's just from whatever planet has a Swedish accent, the same way that Twi'leks often speak with a French accent.
Mm-hmm.
So we just got planet Florida, so there's got to be a planet Sweden out there somewhere. Oh, wait. That's Scipio, isn't it? Because that's where the banks are. And the clocks.
Is that
the Intergalactic Banking Clan? Huh?
Switzerland?
Oh.
Are you thinking of Switzerland?
Yeah.
Oh, Alex. See, Alex needs dinner. This is what happens.
Look, I'm Star Wars explained. I'm not real world explained.
Well, we see that.
We know.
It's okay, Alex. You can make mistakes.
It's okay. It's okay. It's fine. I'll happily make mistakes about real world geography. If I mess up a planet name, end of the world.
That's fine. Yeah.
Andrew Beam, thank you for the next super chat. It took me 3 episodes, but I finally figured out what Kino got for his management role. Hair gel. But seriously, this episode was masterful. Working payoff and setup between the 3 storylines. Yeah, so he just has an extra tube. He's got a food tube, a water tube, and a gel tube.
And a hair gel tube?
Yeah.
Ew.
Or maybe the food paste also works as a hair gel.
That just is so depressing to think about the inmates of this prison. Like, am I going to eat food today or am I going to style my hair? They got to choose.
Well, Jim Bach did say that you get as much food as you want.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
You should be fine.
Joel with the next super chat. When Andy Serkis gave his speech at the control room, I could almost see Caesar saying apes together strong. Yeah. It was big Planet of the Apes energy, I felt.
I think there's definitely a reason they cast him.
Yeah. And again, they didn't design this character around Andy Serkis, but it just kind of happened that Andy was available and wanted to do it, was interested. So I think the planets aligned for him to be playing this role.
Yeah, he's so good. And I'll bring up this one too because it's relevant. Joel Davis, thank you. Prisoners together, strong.
Yeah,
it is very similar.
Now I need to rewatch the Apes movies.
They're so good. Matthew Byron, thank you for the next super chat. The message says, will we get a double finale at Spellhouse and Ferrix or no? Any Imperial cameo cliffhangers, Tarkin, Palpatine, Yularen?
Ooh, okay. So I don't think we'll see Spellhouse.
I don't think so either.
We're definitely going to see Ferrix again. Imperial cameo cliffhangers. I kind of think we will see someone, and I'm kind of hoping for. Oh no, I forgot his name.
Describe him.
Guy.
Krennic.
Krennic. Oh my god. I'm hoping for a Krennic cameo because that actor has not aged too much since Rogue One, but we know they can do Tarkin de-aged. Yularen is still there, so we know we could get him again. I would love a Palpatine cameo as well, just a very brief one. But I don't think we need it. Like someone said earlier, we don't need any Force users in this show. Just the idea of Palpatine and what he's created is enough. but Tarkin or Krennic would be my hopes and dreams for cameos. What about you?
I do kind of feel like they might do that. They might do a cameo at the end of the season, even if it's not going to be a major part of season 2. Like, I don't feel like they need to do a post-credit scene that's like, here's what's going to happen in season 2. But I do think like Krennic fits into this story. Tarkin can fit into this story. I'm not expecting it. I think that the focus will be on Ferrix and Cassian, but I would be happy to explore more. I agree. I don't think we're going to see Spellhouse. We know there's going to be more between Luthen and Saw, but that's about as far as we know. I think we're going to be mostly focused on Ferrix.
Mm-hmm. Bakey has the next super chat. Will the prison escape become public knowledge across the galaxy? I don't think so. I don't see how it could, because it's on its own planet and they didn't really have access to any like radios or anything to be like, hey, like this is happening, this is going on. But it does make me think about, there were multiple versions of that prison, like ship. They called it a ship. I don't know if it's a ship or not, but that facility, there were others on that planet. And I'm just like, are they going to find out? Are they going to have an uprising? Maybe Kino finds a way to get on some kind of radio and let them know so that they can also do the same. I would love to think that happens, but yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I am worried about the other 6 prisons. Is that okay? One of them all got liberated, but how do we do the other ones? And maybe, yeah, Kino is like, well, I'm stuck here. I'll figure something out, and I can help free another 5,000 and another 5,000.
Right. Whew.
But yeah, I don't think it's going to be like a widespread thing.
Probably not.
Darth Nicholas, thank you for another super chat. Speaking of the running of the Narkina inmates, I love how Wilro Hood has an extensive backstory despite appearing on film for only half a second and carrying something that later appeared in Mando Season 1. That's the magic of Star Wars. Fans latch on to the dumbest stuff, and then people make backstories because of it. Wilro Hood gained a notoriety within the fandom, and then he gained notoriety within the content creators and the story writers. So now we have stories for him.
And he gained notoriety in our hearts.
He did.
Fun fact, that was the very first Star Wars Explained video.
That's true. That is true.
The very first one was about Wilro Hood.
I've always had a fascination with Wilro Hood because of that exact reason. I've always loved the background characters, and I mean, he is like the epitome of the background characters. So, yeah.
The one that
I think people would be surprised to know it was Wilro and not Big Starklighter, but they both have mustaches, so that's cool.
We'll get his story soon in another Certain Point of View book, I'm sure.
I do. His Empire story was good. I liked it a lot, so maybe we'll pick it up in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. DC Havoc, thank you so much for the super chat.
HVAC.
HVAC?
Yeah.
I just read it as Havoc.
I like that too.
Thanks so much for the super chat. When he said he couldn't swim, that was really devastating. I was hoping he could follow him a little further outside of prison and understand him. We could follow him. Yeah. We've harped on that quite a bit already this episode, but there's so much more we could learn about Kino, but what his character gave us in the short time that we did have him on screen was priceless.
Yeah. He is a fan favorite for good reason. He broke my heart. I miss him already.
He's fine.
He's fine. Lesmond de Gaunt, thank you for another super chat. Yet it's London next year. I will see you there. P.S. I love you both so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will see. We still need to get our plane tickets. That's something I need to pull the trigger on. But we have our hotel. We have our passes. We're going.
I've seen some people talking about visiting some of the filming locations for Andor because they are in London or
Oh
near
yeah,
London.
yeah.
So we could do that. We could have a little meetup at the ISB.
Wait, is that a real building?
The bridge is.
Oh, cool. Neat.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So we'll look into that.
Nice.
Another one from Dragonus Prime here. The best sequel to Andor. Many Both Hands. I had to read it in my head.
I saw the gears turning as you were reading it.
I had to read it in my head first before I said it out loud.
Many Both Hands is from the oh my god, now I'm brain farting. It is late.
Robot Chicken?
No, close. The Tag and Bink comics.
Okay, gotcha.
They go on a mission with Manny Bothans. So when Mon Mothma says Manny Bothans died to bring us this information, it's a character, not a species.
Oh, what a silly mix-up! If that were
if Manny Bothans makes it into Andor, I'll do something crazy. I don't know what yet, but I'll do it. Pedro Tenor, thank you for the next super chat. Andor has the best counter arguments to the complaints that Snoke's death left no big baddie for episode 9. Hux had all the potential to be a mix of Dedra and Cyril. Great argument. I agree.
I love that.
You don't need a big, scary Emperor type person. Like, the Emperor is great, obviously, but we didn't need to repeat that necessarily. And yeah, like, I cheered when Snoke died in The Last Jedi. So we could have just had Hux being like, oh, I'm unhinged now.
A rabid cur.
Yeah. Honestly, that would have been a fun line to follow up on.
Yeah.
Like a rabid cur that's now let off the leash. Yeah, that's good.
Poetry. Sorry. Justin Carter, thanks for the next super chat. The old question, is it worth killing the devil if you have to sell to do it?
Sell your soul to do it, I think.
Sure, yeah. Sell your soul to do it. This show is making Luke make that shot have vastly more weight in it. Okay, I get it. So yeah. Luke's into the exhaust port. Gotcha.
Yeah, I like seeing everyone. So Rogue One, we took a step back from A New Hope to see, like, here are all the people that got the Death Star plans, so Luke could do that. And now we're taking a step back to be like, here are all the people that affected Cassian's life, so he would be willing to go to Scarif to steal the plans, so Luke could do that. Like, yeah, I love the, like, just pull back to see all of these people.
I'd be so interested in a documentary about the idea of prequels and the idea of storytelling and filmmaking, of like giving us a story and then saying, but wait, aren't you curious about how they got to this point? And like backing it up and then backing it up again, backing it up again. Because we've seen this with Star Wars. You know, we got episodes 4, 5, 6, then we got prequels. We got A New Hope, then we got Rogue One, now we're getting Andor. It's just so fascinating. And I would love to see someone tackle a documentary style movie or series about just where this kind of originated in storytelling. I mean, obviously, like the Bible itself is a prequel.
Wait, what?
The Bible, it's a prequel to like
how
everything we know.
Well, to us, it is. When it was written, it was just a mythology.
Yes, but everyone lives their lives very closely around a prequel.
But they didn't write the book of Exodus and then do Genesis.
They could have. We don't know. You weren't around.
That's true. You know what?
Don't get me started on the Bible.
That's true, and that's fair, because Moses is credited with writing like the first 5 books, I think. So he could have written them out of order. We don't know. if we were to keep going down the prequel road for Star Wars though and Andor, I would like to get the series B4 B2 so we could see who B2 was before Andor. And I think that's a cute title. And Lucasfilm, you can have that one for free.
B4 B2.
Or B2 B4. Either way, it works.
Yeah. Oh, love it.
Darth Nicholas, thank you for another super chat. Do you think we'll learn the fate of Andor's girlfriend from Niamos? Do you think she was apprehended by the Empire too? No, I think she's still waiting there.
She's living her best life.
When Andor goes back to get the manifesto, she's going to be like, finally, where are the Pizzos? That's such a sitcom end to that whole saga.
She's just been like squatting there for months.
Just waiting. I mean, he may have paid for like a year of that hotel room. We don't know.
Could be. I would love that if she showed back up. Kelly E, thanks for another super chat. Sacrifice is the theme that dominated this episode. It's true.
That is true. And the writer of the episodes, all three of them, said as much.
In the roundtable interviews, which are coming soon. You should just release those this weekend.
Well, then I'll have nothing to release on Monday or Tuesday. So, no.
That's not true.
That is true.
We can release whatever we want.
Okay, then I'll have nothing Andor related. If someone wants to see a random video about Ord Mantell, I could do that.
Well, we did bring up Orn Frita and whether or not he could survive another headshot wound, so maybe.
Eric Bruno, thank you for the next super chat. Kino, how is Andor going to get off-world? Ship? That's just like 3. Okay. Kino, I think, is staying there. I think he's staying in the prison. I have no idea about Andor. And I also don't know if they're going to show us. Like, they didn't show us what happened to Cinta outside of her little speeder, her scooter.
Oh, yeah. You were very upset about that. You were like, how'd she get there?
Well, I don't even know why we needed to see the scooter scene is all.
It's just fun.
I mean, it was a cool scooter, but I don't really know the point of that little scene. I do understand seeing Cinta being like, oh, the Empire is here on Aldhani. But the fact that she just like went from scooter to Ferrix is a little weird, but maybe they'll follow up on that.
Yeah. I am excited to see, because we know from the end of this episode that Andor and Melshi are together. They were like skittering off on the surface of whatever planet this on. So yeah, I think between the two of them, they'll find a way off, whether it be they steal a ship or they get on public transit somewhere, because we know that exists because of Obi-Wan. It would be interesting if they kept their prison uniforms on the whole time and got on a public transit bus and everybody was like, wait a second,
that dude that was on the little bus with Luthen in episode 2,
he's on the bus. He tries to talk to them and he slowly realizes that, like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't be talking to them.
Yeah. Oh, those are some fun jumpsuits you're wearing.
Ice, thanks so much for the next super chat. What an episode. A blast from start to finish. A lot of great performances. I can't wait to see how the season wraps up. Our thoughts exactly. Such a blast to watch. Have no idea what's coming in the last 2 episodes, but I'm so excited.
Yeah. Loved episode 10 to death.
Also, Garth McMurray sent in a super chat here that's relevant to our conversation from a few minutes ago.
From an hour ago.
Synonyms for fulcrum are as follows: axis, swivel, pivot, axle. Okay.
That is cool.
Pivot. That's all I can think of. That's all I can think of when I hear that word is the Friends episode of The Couch. But I digress. Hunter of Augusta sent a super chat in. Thank you so much. Message shows just some support to show It's not a lot, but I wanted to still give something. Thank you so much. I
Yeah,
mean,
thank you so much, Hunter.
just showing up and giving the video a view or a thumbs up, that is support enough in itself. So it means the world to us, to anyone who's sends in super chats or joins the Big's super fans, which is the membership that allows you to use the little emojis in the chat. But it's all amazing, and we're so grateful for it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Hunter. Ice has the next two here. Andy Serkis crushed it. He gave not one, but two great monologues. Kino had a surprising character arc. If you had told me at first that I'd be rooting for this guy, I wouldn't have believed you. I said the exact same thing. Couldn't agree more. That I was just like, this guy's going to be an enemy the whole time. And then after episode 9, I was like, never mind. I love him to death. Don't you do anything to him.
Yeah. Again, such a roller coaster of emotion in this arc alone with Kino's character. So good.
And the second one from Ice says, hope Kino didn't drown or something, especially since his speech says, help each other. Would be pretty cruel for him to not get help from anyone.
I didn't think about that, but yeah.
I mean, yeah. Like, I'm really torn on that. Like, I think for as far as Cassian is concerned, he sacrificed, he stayed behind, and he saved everyone else. Like, I think that's important for Cassian to see. But still in my heart, I hope he made it out. And I'll bring up this super chat because it's relevant from Dave McHugh. Thank you. In today's Hollywood Reporter interview with Gilroy, he notes that we never saw Serkis die, so there's still hope. By the way, London is my 10th celebration since 99. See you there. See you there. But yeah, like,
that's awesome.
I think there's absolutely hope for Kino to survive and get off and live happily ever after. I mean, I want that to happen. But
same.
I'm also like, for the episode, I think he is left there. But you never know. He might pop up again in season 2 or something.
Yeah. Riv Wilson. Poor Kino. Yeah.
Agreed.
Poor Kino. But also, we don't know. We don't know what happens to him. I'm just going to keep it in my mind that he makes it out and he's able to live a happy life afterwards.
Me too.
And even if he didn't, like, he made the right choice. He did what he needed to do for the rebellion. And then Ice with another super chat. Thank you so much, Ice. Something I love is that it looks like one guy falls off the edge running, and then that gives everyone the idea to dive into the water. They said, that's not a bad idea. Oh my God. That's not a bad idea, actually. Cannonball.
Basically, yeah. I do think that one, the first guy, it looked like got accidentally pushed over.
Yeah. Which kind of terrifies me. Like, there were a few shots in this episode that made me really nervous because I remember seeing news articles about what happened at, I forget which concert it was. Not the Fire Festival. It was after that, but like there was a concert that people just got trampled.
Oh.
And
that's happened multiple times. But more recently?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But like that happens more often than you would think. People get in these huge crowds and something happens and something goes wrong and people get trampled. And so that I kept thinking about that at various times in this episode. And I was like getting really nervous about it. So yeah, once they reached that edge, some of those people got pushed whether they liked it or not, whether they could swim or not.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, it was like Astro World. Thank you, Travis Scott. Thank you, Gabriel in chat. That's what I was thinking of.
Oh, yeah. The next one is from Steve Boyd. Who administers this vow the rebels reference? I don't know, but they have brought it up a lot. So I think we're going to find out more about it.
The vow?
Yeah. In the last episode and in this episode, Vel said something like, "We took a vow." And Luthen this episode said, "You took a vow." So I think we're going to learn more about that.
Interesting. When I hear the vow, I just think of that HBO show that we've been watching.
Right. I think we're going to find out more about it. They've brought it up enough times that I think it's going to be explored.
It could, or, you know, Ethan14 in chat said, I think it's a figure of speech. I think that's likely as well. That, like, if you're dedicated enough to the cause, you've taken a vow, quote unquote. And like Vel kind of says it to Mon Mothma, like, we chose this side. We chose our route to freedom.
Yeah, but the fact that like Luthen and Vel have said something about like, you took a vow, I feel like it's related. I think it's more than that. Like, I think it was a group of people together that did something.
Could be.
And said, we're going to take down the Empire.
Eric Bruno, thanks for the next super chat. In positive news, last night was perfect. The local state house rep I was working for, a Democrat, won at 3 a.m. by 2 votes out of 33,000. And then I watched Andor. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. That sounds like a perfect night. And I wish we could have.
Yeah. Ours didn't go quite as well. But that's okay.
You know what? In the grand scheme of things, it's okay. I think
overall, it sounds like the midterms went pretty well.
Right. Sean Sully, thank you so much for your super chat. If you're still here, I have nothing to add, just saying hello. And I think later he said something about wanting
my random Ord Mantell video. Yeah,
Ord Mantell. I'll find it if you want to bring up the next one.
Oh, well, I gotta scroll way up. Here, I found that one.
There you go.
Well, one's coming eventually. I think I made it during season 1 of The Bad Batch, and then I just kept pushing it for other stuff. But it exists on the channel, and it has for like 1.5 years. Oh my god! I keep a bunch of videos in a backlog. So that if we want to go on vacation or if something terrible happens, we'll still have videos come out, and that's one in the backlog. But Bill Rudd has the next super chat. Thank you, Bill. Maybe there's a second way out for Kino. The world between worlds. Oh, you monster. You did it.
Oh, there it is.
Pull him to the future for a secret Sith project named Snoke. You just pulled all of them together. You pulled all of the bad theories together just to hurt me.
It's all there.
But that was good. Like, I didn't see the world between worlds until I was in the middle of reading it. You got me. You got me good.
I love it.
Yeah, there's a world between worlds portal on the prison ship of Narkina 5.
Another super chat from Chazertron 5000. Kino in Lego Star Wars Summer Vacation 2, where a Gungan teaches him to swim? Question mark?
Perfect.
Aww. And a Gungan doing it too? That would be so cute.
Honestly, that feels like something that Lego Star Wars would make a joke about eventually, like putting him in a little inner tube and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. There's so much potential for that story.
Let's save Ron's for the end.
Sure.
I don't know. Okay. That just feels like a good way to wrap up.
Another one from Ice. Thank you so much, Ice. Mon Mothma's conversation this week made me feel nauseous. Anyone else? He is willing to deal with her, but his asking price is her daughter? Oh, agreed. Like, I don't know if I felt nauseous, but if I really think about it to any more extent than I already have, I could see myself feeling nauseous about it. Just knowing everything that Mon Mothma has been through this whole time, and then she's just like struggle after struggle, trying to help the rebellion, but also do her part in the Senate, and now she's having to work with this thug, and he was like bringing up an arranged marriage, which is the last thing on her mind. It's gross and it sucks.
We both were just like, what? When he started to suggest it, he like didn't straight up say it, but he said enough.
I think you showed our reaction for that earlier, if you still have it.
I did?
The reaction picture?
This? That's the only one I have.
Oh, okay. Well,
that was from I Can't Swim.
It's, I think one of the ones from Twitter was from, I think the first one I posted from Twitter was from that scenario of like, really? That's what he's asking? Anyways. Yeah.
Decaf Coffee has the next super chat. Same as last week. I just got home from work and still haven't seen the episode. You two are real troopers streaming this long /late. We're closing in. We're closing in on the end so we can go get some dinner. But thank you
so
Decaf
much.
Coffee.
Ice here again. Andor is doing a lot of retconning with Chandrila and its culture. Books portrayed it as a utopia and perfect society where everyone is valued and has choice. This is undoing a lot of that. Thoughts?
I don't think it's retconning anything. We don't know that much about Chandrila. I did have this perception of it as a utopia, but even utopias aren't perfect. Like, I mean, they can have that presentation, but it might not be that way. And yeah, just because Mon Mothma was from Chandrila, I was like, oh, it's got to be a great place. But we're just learning that it wasn't. Like, we're getting firsthand information that it was not.
Right. You could say the same thing about America and people trying to travel to America and live here as being the land of the free. But in reality, it's kind of hideous in a lot of ways. So Chandrila, I'm sure, has a multifaceted history. And the traditions, the heavy traditions, probably still play a part in the more wealthy members of society. So, but like the rest of it could be drastically different and we wouldn't really know.
Yeah. It's just learning new information is not a retcon. It's just new information. That's how I see it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. People throw around the word retcon like all willy-nilly. And it's okay because there's really not a good other word for it other than retcon. It's a very like broad
sense. It's kind of like, yeah, Easter eggs has become just a catch-all for any fun reference, which
sure.
Yeah.
Shadow Demon 117. Thank you so much for the super chat. Kino gets out, goes to Alderaan. Oh no.
No, sad. No.
I don't want to
dislike
that.
Boo.
Hugo Ease with another super chat. Sidebar. Who does fascist villainy and strategy better? Miro, Thrawn, Tarkin, or guest star Hans Landa from Inglourious Bastards?
I think Thrawn.
Fascist villainy.
Villainy and strategy. Okay, villainy. Probably Tarkin, but I think Thrawn has the strategy down the most.
Yeah. Yeah, these could be kind of broken up in different tangents, but I think Tarkin does fascist villainy pretty well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Thrawn has strategy done better.
Agreed.
Zach Lane, thank you so much for the super chat. Don't see a message here, so if you've got one, just send it over to one of our mods. But Darth Nicholas, thank you for this super chat. It'd be interesting to see Kino Loy be captured by remaining or incoming Imperial forces on Narkina 5 after being left behind by all the prisoners for use as a potential Snoke prototype, LOL. No, I don't think he would allow himself to be captured again.
I don't mind the Snoke jokes. Like, I get it. I get why people are doing it, but it's also one of those things where it's like, by the nature of this being what we do, I've already seen a billion Snoke jokes, and I'm like, okay, I get it.
I just don't.
They finally died.
Oh, yeah, mine did that earlier. That's why my camera had to shut off briefly. But there's
Don't
Alex's
pay attention
empty
to that
cans.
noise.
I hear those empty cans, or can. Anyways, yeah, no, I don't think he knows the type of character or person to be caught and then used and taken advantage of by Imperial forces. I think he's either going out in a blaze of glory, or he's staying on the side of the rebellion and helping continue the fight.
Yeah, I don't want him to be caught again. I want him to get freedom of some kind somehow.
All right, let's talk about Ron6751's super chat. What could you see happen in season 2?
I think the speech about the Gorman massacre will happen, but I think we'll see Cassian's side of that story. We got it in Star Wars Rebels, so let's see what Cassian did during that point. But that's going to be like episodes 7, 8, 9. Like, that'll be close to the end of the season. So up until that point, I think we'll just see kind of the rebellions continue to grow and manifest. But as for specific things, specific events, the Gorman massacre is all I really have.
I'm not sure what we're going to see, but one thing that I hope we see is I hope we see Mon Mothma leave Coruscant.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I don't think that'll happen until around that time, but yeah.
I just want her to leave Coruscant.
I think she will.
And, Cassian's going to continue to learn the various lessons that he needs to learn to become the Cassian that we know and love in Rogue One. And I would love to see more people show up from Rogue One, like Antok Merrick.
Yeah. Oh, and like, this slipped my mind, but yes, I want that to be an arc. I would like to see that.
It has to be.
Cassian so I'd like that to happen fairly early in the season so that K2 can be a part of the story for at least half the season.
Yeah. And now I'm kind of like, I know a lot of people joked that B2 might get downloaded into a KX droid and continue on, and that be K2SO. At first, I wasn't a fan of that theory, but now I'm kind of like warming up to it just because I want B2 to continue on in our hearts and minds. So maybe that happens.
He will never die. Unless he gets put into K2SO and then he dies on Scarif.
And then to wrap up here, Ice, last one. Thanks for a great space to talk. May the Force be with you. Thank you, Ice.
Thank you, Ice. All right, we did it. It's been almost 4 hours. We got to go eat and also finally decompress. Actually, I still have to edit something tonight, so I got to do that too. We have our friend Zach is getting married in Texas this weekend, and we're going to fly out to do that on Friday. So I have to get a bunch of stuff done early, but we're going to go do that. We're going to eat and edit and then try to relax. But thank you all for joining us. All you buttheads, thank you for being here for no ifs and or buts.
Thank you so much to everyone who sent in super chats. Thanks again to Alden Diaz for joining us. Such great analyzation of Star Wars in general, but like specifically this arc of Andor. It's so good.
Yeah. Thank you all. One last one. Would you like to see Cassian go on adventures with the Rebels or Ghost Crew in season 2 of Andor? Not really, no. I kind of want him to just be his own person.
No, I think he deserves to relax a little bit while Rebels and the Ghost crew go on and do their own thing.
I wouldn't mind seeing Chopper. I think a Chopper cameo would be great, but
yeah,
and this is a term of endearment, butt heads, because no ifs and or buts, butt heads. So some people
exactly
have not caught on to that yet. I didn't even coin this term. Someone else did it. I just liked it.
But it's funny because like
and or butt heads.
That's how Alex opens the show a lot, and I'm always like, it just never really comes across as nice. So I'm glad to know that other people feel the same way.
Fine, maybe it's not the best thing.
But yes, when Alex says butt heads, we mean anyone who watches no ifs and or buts. But yeah, that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.